They're going to kick the field goal. It'll be Jason Chingel out of the hold of Mesco. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, a pleasant Tuesday. Good morning to you and yours, and welcome to Off the Bench, presented by our friends at United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. You can find us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. We ask, as always, if you would, please subscribe to the program. You can also find us streaming on Facebook, and that is the Chatterbox Sports page. Flip on the notification switch if you would. If you'd rather join us in podcast form, schedule's better for you that way, by all means. Search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. Well, where do you rank him among the all-time Bengal greats? Top 5, top 10, top 15? We're talking, of course, about the great A.J. Green. Yesterday, the 10-year Bengal announced his retirement from the National Football League on his Instagram account after, of course, playing his final 2 seasons with the Arizona Cardinals. Green is second only in Bengals franchise history to Chad Johnson Ochocinco in receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. That 2011 draft, which produced A.J. Green and Andy Dalton, turned around a team, of course, that had been ravaged going all the way back to that Carson Palmer knee injury in the playoff game against Pittsburgh. That duo helped lead the franchise to 5 consecutive playoff appearances. Green's career turned for the worse, you may remember. In 2019, injured his ankle and forced him to miss the whole year. Now, a year later, the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow, and they were hoping Green would be back and he would be Burrow's primary target. Unfortunately, it simply never happened. More targets to Higgins, more targets to Boyd, and Green was an afterthought. A year later, he left for the Valley of the Sun. But what a career for A.J. Green. Speaking of Arizona, Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo will get a second interview for the vacant head coaching job with the Cardinals. Anarumo is joined by Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka as the 2 finalists for that job. Now, Brian Flores was rumored to be the 3rd candidate in Arizona. He had 1 interview, and they were going to bring him back. But for whatever reason, he has decided that he'd rather be the defensive coordinator with the Minnesota Vikings. Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan was in the initial round in Arizona. He will not be brought back for a second interview, but he is still in the hunt for the vacant head coaching job in Indianapolis. Tom Brady is going to take a year away from football, and that includes announcing it. Brady signed a 10-year contract with Fox a year ago to become the network's lead analyst after his retirement. But Brady has decided his broadcast career will not begin until 2024. Does that mean he leaves the door open again to play? The Eagles and Chiefs, of course, on their way today to Arizona, getting ready for the Super Bowl. Philadelphia, a slight favorite. What's that line, Paul, looking at? Paul Fritchner, Casey McAllister. Good morning, men.
How are you, Tom?
Good. You guys all right?
Doing great.
Good. Where's that line now?
1.5. Still.
And where's the money and where are the sharks
for the
going?
Eagles? That's a good question. I actually haven't looked at it yet, so I'll bring that up right now. The money right now, it's still at 1.5, but everything's pretty even on Philadelphia, just 60-40. So not crazy. Not crazy. They're probably getting it right around where they want it, and I think that's a number that makes sense. 60-40 Philadelphia.
What about the big money?
It's even.
Really?
Yeah, it's even. 61-60 on the percentages, so it's dead even.
Okay. The comments made yesterday by Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni, very interesting. He acknowledged that he still has a quote-unquote chip on his shoulder about being let go by Andy Reid. That's when Reid came in, became a head coach in Kansas City. Hard to believe. That's 2012. That's a long time ago. He said that Reid did handle the situation with nothing but class. Sirianni was the wide receivers coach for the Chiefs, met his wife there, and that was under Romeo Crennel. College basketball, UC Bearcats are starting to play very, very well. We'll talk about them today. They try and continue their late season surge tonight at Tulane, tip-off 7 o'clock. Xavier will be keeping an eye on tonight's Big East clash between Marquette and UConn. Muskies are tied with the Golden Eagles atop the conference standings. Dayton will play at VCU. The Ohio University at Northern Illinois. Miami host Western Michigan. Last night in college hoops, Jim Larinaga and Miami blow the doors off Duke. I mean, they're dunking down near the end of the game. They got it going on down there. 81-59 the final, and seemingly every night it's a top 10, top 15 battle in the Big 12, and that it was last night in Lawrence as Kansas beats Texas at Allen Fieldhouse, 88-80. Big numbers inside the chat already today. Boys, going to start with A.J. Green. Casey, I asked a question. You're a big Bengals guy. You think back to the history of the franchise. Before I get into top, 10 all-time, top 5 all-time, all that kind of thing, is he the greatest receiver so far? Now, Chase has only played for 2 years, T. Higgins 3 years. On the long-term body of work, is he the best receiver the franchise has ever had? And they've had a lot of good ones.
I think he was on pace to do it. He had some injury issues, though, that really just derailed that process. I'm thinking of, 2016. That was going to be his best season yet, and then it just kind of went off the rails. Bengals had a mild season after that, and then 2018 they started 4-1. He gets hurt and out of the lineup, and unfortunately for him, he was just never quite the same after his hamstring issue.
Yep.
I think he tore it or something like that, and then he just had a lot of feet issues, which, by the way, the reason why he had a lot of toe issues, turf toe, is because I've never seen a man be able to toe drag like that. I mean, as much as I've watched football, and I've watched a lot of football in my time, and I know it's not a long time, but just from what I've seen, there's not anyone that can toe drag, catch the ball out of bounds, fully extended like A.J. Green could. There's just no one quite like him. He was the Ravens killer. He was a really, really talented receiver that boosted this team when it was in its worst state. And I really do feel like he helped propel the careers of many Bengals, honestly. I mean, without him, we might not know about Sanu or Marvin Jones. We might not know about how, or we might not have the same Andy Dalton. We might have had a different Andy Dalton.
Well, I think you can make an argument that he helped just being around because he was a first-class guy by all accounts. I mean, top shelf as a guy. That he had to rub off, even though it was a short amount of time. Clearly rubbed off on guys like Tyler Boyd, a short time for T. Higgins, right? Had to.
Yeah.
You're in that receivers room of guys, and you have to. There was a time there. You're right, Casey. I mean, there was a time there, and I can't remember exactly what the stats were, but for his first 5, 6, 7 years in the league, he was one of those guys that, when you were doing a game, you'd hear the broadcaster say, well, he's one of only 2 guys or one of only 3 guys. Guys like Randy Moss, T.O., where they had X number of catches for X number of yards and went to a Pro Bowl in each of their first 5, 6 years in the league, 7 years in the league. I mean, he was on that pace for a while there before the injuries to be, without a doubt, the Bengals' greatest all-time receiver. But he was on pace there to be a potential Hall of Fame guy.
Right. And really the only thing that is going to hold him back is just his playoff success in the league. And what's really unfortunate is, he almost had a win. He almost had that opportunity. And some of the other opportunities that they had, the Bengals were just a young team. And, they were taken out by another great Hall of Famer, J.J. Watt. That's really tough, at least for A.J. in his case for the Hall of Fame. I certainly hope that he gets into the Bengals Ring of Honor very soon. If not, I don't know if we do first ballot Hall of Fame.
I think they're playing catch up.
Well, yeah, they're playing catch up. So it might be a while before we see AJ, but I think if we were in a state where we could, I think he would be in whenever he can be in.
Yeah. Paul?
Personally, I have so many fond memories of AJ Green because he was drafted when I was in 8th grade. And as a Bengals fan living in Northern Virginia, you didn't get to see a lot of games, right? I only got to see when they played the Ravens. Mm-hmm. And those are some great memories.
Yeah.
Right? I got to see probably 2 to 3 full games here. Obviously, I'd watch the highlights and everything, but my family, diehard Bengals fans. My mom from Cincinnati, grew up, diehard Bengals fan. And I remember growing up, my attachment to Cincinnati and the Bengals and everything, it grew so fondly with Carson Palmer, and then the injury and everything went downhill, and it was tough for a few years in there trying to follow them because they weren't great, and it just, it's tough being 530 miles away from the city and not being able to watch all the games. But then AJ Green gets drafted, and all of a sudden you get to watch at least 2 full games a year, and they're Ravens games. Well, those were some pretty good memories. So, yeah, I'm going to miss AJ. I really appreciated being able to watch him and kind of, move here to Cincinnati while he was in his prime. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad to see how many people really reached out and said things. Social media yesterday, all the tributes were great, all the highlight videos and everything. I always love when somebody retires and you get to go back and have this day filled with their highlights, and that was yesterday.
I remember Joe Burrow's his rookie season. I thought, AJ was just gonna go nuts. I made a sizzle reel of AJ to Burrow, called it the hype video, and I value AJ very highly. I think the world of him and the type of player he was. He didn't take no crap from anyone. He was also a stand-up guy, a great leader in the locker room. I really hope that we sign a one-day contract so he can retire a Bengal.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And I bet you he would be in favor of that too. I hope it happens. You go back and you look at it. It's interesting that when the fans had a chance to vote on that 40th anniversary team a number of years ago. Now, that's been a number of years ago, but A.J. Green was, he had played an extended period of time by then. Chad Johnson, or Ocho Cinco, was voted the number 1 wide receiver on the Bengals' 40th anniversary team. Chad Johnson, you go back and look at some of his numbers. It's so hard to believe for me. I don't know about you guys. It's so hard to believe for me that Chad Johnson last played for the Bengals in 2011.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, does time go by. 45 years old now.
Chad?
Yeah, can you believe that? 45. Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco.
He seems like a guy that could still lace it up and give you one good game.
You're right. Well, Terrell Owens, there's no doubt, could do it even now. There's no doubt about it. If you ever see any video of the way he looks and some of the workout stuff that he does, it's just insane. Unfortunately, a lot of times guys are going to be remembered, and you hate to say it, because Andy Dalton one day is going to go in that Ring of Honor. There's no doubt about that, right? A.J. Green's going to go in. There's no doubt about that. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they'll say, okay, great, they got to the playoffs every year, but you know what's coming next. They never won a playoff game. Yeah. And they had a number of those games here at home. Now, can you blame all that on Andy Dalton and A.J. Green? Absolutely not. That one game, I was there in the pouring down rain, standing next to Luke, the playoff game against Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Dalton was hurt in that game. They had to play A.J. McCarron, if I remember right. Didn't he play that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they fumble the ball inside the 10, and, off goes Roethlisberger, blah, blah, blah. But Green, it's certainly a day to celebrate. The Bengals, I think their franchise is at a point now, ownership and everything, where your idea of signing him to a one-day contract and retiring as a Bengal and making a big deal out of it here in Cincinnati, I think would be the right thing to do. And I would not be surprised if we heard that's what they're going to do.
Are you guys fans of that one-day contract thing?
I
know
am.
Some people think it's cheesy. I don't, but I know.
No, I mean, I'm a huge fan of it, but I can't remember the last time that's happened, though. I really don't. I can't remember.
Well, if the Bengals are thinking about doing it with A.J. Green, I mean, the Texans would have to consider doing the same thing for J.J. Watt, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah.
And would the New England Patriots think about doing that with Tom Brady?
Well, no, he'll be remembered as a buck.
Oh, please.
Hey, he won a Super Bowl as a buck.
Yeah.
But seriously, this is an interesting topic. I mean, when you look at three guys, two of the three for sure are going to the Hall of Fame, right? Tom Brady and J.J. Watt. No question about it. A.J. Green is right on that fine line. More than likely not. But he'll be in the mix. But he'll go in the Bengals Ring of Honor for sure. But should all three of those franchises, if you ran all three of those franchises, if you're Robert Kraft, okay, would you sign Tom Brady right now to a one-year deal and tie a ribbon around that whole Brady era that won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots?
Well, I would. But I thought not that we have to get super deep into this. I thought maybe their relationship was a little rocky. I know he went to a wedding in the middle of this season.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Spent time with Robert Kraft and Belichick.
Well, they're tight now. I mean, they're really tight. They're really tight.
So their relationship is fine. Yeah, I would do it.
I mean, they have like a father-son relationship. And look, in fathers and sons, it's not always perfect. I mean, I remember we were there doing a Patriots game one year. I can't remember who it was against. Might against New England or somebody else. It was New Orleans. I was working with Aikman, and we're in there, and Robert Kraft came in to say hello. We ended up going to dinner with him that night, but he was talking about the relationship he had with Tom Brady and how when Tom got married, I guess he got married in Costa Rica or somewhere like that, but somewhere really remote, up in the mountains, where you had to fly a plane and land in one city, and then they had helicopters taking them up there to get to this place where the wedding was, and everybody was staying at some resort, whatever it was. But that, basically, while I don't know if Robert Kraft was necessarily the best man, I would guess that Brady's dad was probably his best man, because clearly they are very, very close. But that Kraft is kind of like a second dad to Brady. Now, some of the stuff that, you leave and what happens, and he said, she said, and the whole Belichick thing. But, I mean, you got to be above that. You got to be above that, for sure. I mean, this is Tom Brady, right? Do you find it interesting at all? I read the comments. Did you guys read the comments about why he's not starting his broadcasting career till 24?
No.
I find this to me, this is vintage Tom Brady. And I'm a big Brady fan. He talked about wanting to be the very best at whatever it is that he decides to do. And he basically is going to take the next year, according to these comments he made yesterday, to do everything he can to learn the art of becoming a great television analyst. And believe me, it's a lot harder than people think it is. We talked about it last week. When Joe Montana walked off the playing field, every network known to man was beating down the door to try and get him signed up to come in and be an analyst. Wasn't very good. Now, Drew Brees, I thought could have been pretty good. But in this world we live in, it's like, you better be good right now, and make no mistake, a guy like Brady, even though he didn't use Brees' name, a guy like Brady is smart enough to have paid attention to what happened with Brees, right? They bring him on Sunday Night Football. There's talk that he's going to replace Collinsworth one day, which was total, just complete nonsense that people would even whisper that to start with, because Collinsworth's so on top of his game. But to get him kind of warmed up, they put him on the Notre Dame package, and there were some people that thought he didn't do a very good job. I thought he got better and better. But you're only talking about 7 games they broadcast for Notre Dame because they only have the home games, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really not giving a guy a fair shake to get better. It's repetition. And I would not be surprised at all if Brady spends the next year going off in a television booth, and believe me, Fox will pay to do it, but getting off in a television booth while Fox is doing a normal game, Tampa, wherever, and he's sitting off in another booth doing the game that's not on the air to get ready. Because he doesn't want to walk in that booth and take a beating first year, right?
You know, the first impression now in the broadcast booth is everything, and I think it's interesting when you look back at kind of how this has all gone down, and Greg Olsen, how good of a job Greg Olsen has done. I think Brady's got his work cut out for him, because Greg Olsen is doing a really good job right now, and if you're Fox, you have to be sweating a little bit. Just a little bit. I know you love Tom Brady. You signed him to this massive deal, and he's going to be fantastic. There's really no doubt in my mind he's going to be the best at it, because that's just what he's done forever. And he's also shown on social media and in all these interviews and public appearances and TikTok and everything else that he's personable and charismatic. And we talked so much about it the other day that you never got to know that side of Brady, and now you do. But there has to be some little part of these Fox executives' brains that are saying, man, Burkhardt and Olsen are pretty good right now. Olsen especially. Nothing against Burkhardt, but we're talking analysts. Olsen is doing a heck of a job.
Yep.
Hopefully we don't, we put Olsen out there for another year, and you hope that Brady does a really good job the year after.
Well, you wonder about this whole sort of domino thing, because I guess it came to light yesterday, I read yesterday, where, if I understood the article right, that because look, when they promoted Olsen, this is his first year being the number one guy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Because Aikman and Buck walked out the door after last season. This was his first season as being the number one guy. But there was some kind of stipulation, because they knew they had already signed Brady to a contract to be the lead analyst before Olsen was promoted to the number one team. But inside of Olsen's deal, apparently there's a stipulation that says if he gets another offer to be the number one guy at another network, that he can get out of his contract. The whole Tony Romo thing.
Yeah.
Okay? So, you're sitting there going, boy, if you're Eric Shanks, who is the president of Fox Sports, or Brad Zager, who's the executive producer at Fox Sports, and you're sitting there saying, okay, at least I have another year now where I don't have to make some kind of move with Brady's decision to wait until 24. You know that in 23, Olsen can come back, still be your number one guy. Now, a year later, you got to make that decision, but you don't have to make it today, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We got a phone call?
Yep.
We got a
All
phone
right,
call.
we're going to go to the phone calls. We started this yesterday. We love this. Casey on his game. On his A game.
Who
do we have here today? Who's on the air?
We got Sir Boy.
Is this the famous Sir Boy Wonder 513?
Tom, how are you doing? It's nice to finally talk to you.
Man, it is my pleasure. Everybody around here says that they have had a chance to meet you, whether it was in Kansas City or whether it's at a Bengals game or whatever. How you doing?
Great. Great. I met Tom. I can't tell you how awesome it is to watch this show every day. I absolutely love it. Luckily, I got to meet Casey, Brandon, and his friend Thomas. I hope I said that right, Casey. But that was great to finally meet them in person up in Buffalo. But yeah, I absolutely love the show. One day I stumbled on, I didn't even realize you started until about 3 weeks after, and I just totally stumbled into it. And it's been pretty good. I always thought you were a great broadcaster with the Reds. And
thank you.
I thought it was even better. Honestly, Tom, I'm not trying to, this is no slight. I think you're even better at the podcasting, honestly.
Well, thank you. That's very, very nice of you to say. I appreciate that. So what's your story, Sir Boy Wonder? We talk about you all the time. And what part of town are you in?
I live over in the Oakley area, right, just about 10 minutes from downtown. I grew up here, grew up in Marymount for 14 years of my life. I actually moved to Pittsburgh to go to high school, And I just moved back in 2018. Been working down here for about 5 years. I always was a Reds fan. Joey Votto, I know sometimes I know you come off like you hate Joey Votto, but I'll be honest, I became a Reds fan because of Joey Votto. So Votto has a very soft spot in my heart for me, because that's the reason why I'm the big Reds fan now. But,
let me ask you this, sir boy. Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts about AJ Green? Do you put him in you think he's the best receiver all time in Bengals history, or no?
I don't. I still say that's Chad, but I mean, it's not because I didn't think AJ was great. AJ Green was, in my opinion, very underrated. I always thought when he played in his prime, he was, if not probably the best receiver in football. I know you had Julio Jones, AJ, or Antonio Brown, guys like that. But I always liked AJ Green. He had the size. I thought he was an underrated runner when he caught out to the catch. I'd say he's probably top 3. I'd have him right behind Chad.
Yep. Now let me ask you, because you're such a regular on the show, and you hear us talk about it, and you're always in the chat and kind enough to give your opinion on things. We talk a lot about what we do with the show now, moving forward with football season about to be over. What do you like? What do you want to hear more about?
I like your idea about the whole about getting like musicians, comedians. I think you should have like Gary Owen on the show, because he's a big Bengals fan, and I think he'd be great. Getting guys like Bengal Jim when the Bengal season comes back, because Bengal Jim's a very great or big part of the community when it comes to the Bengals fandom.
Yep.
Or whatever. And I'd love to see you guys do a live show. I think that'd be great, like Boom Shakalaka said yesterday. I think that'd be great.
Well, we're definitely talking about that and looking into different places. You got a watering hole down there in Oakley. Maybe we ought to have our debut down there? Or are you not a watering hole kind of guy, sir boy?
No. I think the Oak Tavern would be wonderful. I know Brandon knows a lot about the Oak Tavern.
Yes, he does. Unfortunately, I think he sleeps there a lot of nights.
Yeah. No, I love the Oak Tavern, though. I think that'd be a great spot. And
all right, then you know what? Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna debunk. I know you say you're not a Starbucks guy, but I'd love to go back a long time ago. Tom, you called the LSU Ohio State game, correct? The national championship.
Correct.
About a week before that, this was the first time I ever even knew who you were. First time I met you or anything. It was probably about 6 o'clock. Starbucks was about dead. I was with my dad. We were getting, I don't even know what we were getting at the time. This middle-aged gentleman walks in, sees my Ohio State hat on. He turns to me and says, that's a great hat, bud. Turns back, couldn't be any nicer to me. And then a week later, we're sitting there getting ready to watch my Buckeyes playing against LSU. And there's Thom Brennaman on the screen, and that's the gentleman I see at Starbucks from a week before. So this theory about you not liking Starbucks, you were there once at least.
Listen, was that the one in Marymount?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can explain that, and not that it needs an explanation, but I can explain that. I mean, my kids, I had one daughter that already graduated from Marymount. We have a son that's still in high school over there now. And so, as you know, it's right there in the middle of the village right there of Marymount. Yep. And so, there are times whether, I'm going to, back in those days, maybe I was going to his junior high school basketball game or our daughter's basketball game, whatever it might be. And, you need a little pick-me-up about 6P, and Starbucks is open.
Absolutely.
So you know what I mean, sir boy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want you to always go ahead. You are the guy that we appreciate here, sir boy, and not me.
Because I like when the whole thing happened 2 years ago, and I was like, you know what? Guys make mistakes. And Tom, I always thought you were great on TV, especially I know no one really talks about this much, but when you did the interview with the Bird on live television, I thought that was some of the greatest stuff ever done in the history of television during a baseball game. Because the Reds were terrible back then, and I thought it was hilarious.
Well, that Bird and I have maintained a very close relationship since that interview, and we've kept a close eye on that Bird and his wife. And so, sir, boy, we can't I'm so glad you got through and took the time to call. And thank you so much for all your kind words. You're a good man. And we'll look forward to – we're going to make that happen down there in Oakley, all right?
Absolutely. I can't wait to meet you formally.
All right, buddy. All the best. Thanks for being with us every day. Sir Boy Wonder, the real man. That's a real man. What a good dude.
What a good guy.
How about that story, meeting him in a Starbucks when he's a little kid with his dad? Not a surprise at all that I would have commented on his Ohio State Buckeyes hat. Not a surprise at all. All right. Kind enough to join us regularly during this season is our good friend James Rapine. And James, welcome back. I made the comment yesterday on Monday that it's been a week. It had been a week since the Bengals had lost. It feels like it's a month. What's it been like for you? I mean, I know that your work doesn't necessarily stop, but it's certainly not the same of going to practice every day and press conferences every day and all that kind of thing.
For sure. Yeah, last week was regroup, recalibrate, and get into off-season mode. It's during the playoff runs of the past 2 years, it's not like I'm paying attention to the draft at all. And in prior years, it was, all right, mid-November, late November, you're already looking at the draft and paying attention to that. So you're just getting your mindset so you know that you have to focus on different things, different off-season things. Obviously, the Burrow contract, Higgins was in the news last week, and I don't even know if it was news, rumblings, whatever you want to call it. But no, it's been nice because you get to sleep in a little bit. You get to, I always stay up late, but stay up a little later, I guess, and regroup.
Well, I mean, you got to take care of that little baby now. I mean, how much
that
are
happened
you really
during the
getting? Are you
season.
making mom get up all the time, that kind of thing?
Me?
Are you carrying a load around there?
Come on now, Thom. Of course. I'm a diaper expert now, and
yeah.
She actually falls asleep for dad much better than mom. So I need to be up because I need to make sure she goes back to sleep.
Do they still have those things, when our kids were little? Now, I mean, I'm sure the technology has changed over the last, for our daughter, when we first started doing this 19 years ago. But do they still have a little thing where you take the diaper and you put it inside this contraption and then you spinning it around and it basically seals it off, so by the time you empty it, you've got like 9 or 10 packets that are all sealed up one after the other of all of their you-know-what? Does it still work that way?
I'm sure there's something like that. Ours is essentially a sealed garbage can where you can't smell it, and you just open it to throw the diaper in, and then you shut it off, and once it gets full, I take it out to the trash. So
okay, all right.
I don't envy our trash man right now, but we don't have to deal with that much.
I always go out and say good morning to those guys. They come down our street on Tuesday morning. I always make it a point today.
What time? Because ours come at like 5 a.m. So I never.
It was early. I mean, it's 6 o'clock or something. But I mean, I was up and I always try to make it a point to go out and thank those guys because that can't be a glamorous job. Good job. I mean, I'm sure the people at Rumpke take great care of them, but it can't be a very glamorous occupation. But I appreciate the job they do. We all do. You're talking about the off season, and I'm curious about something, and help me with this. I was starting to read an article. I didn't finish it. About the Chargers being $20-something million over the salary cap. Did you see this article? You know what I'm talking about? And they're talking about maybe Keenan Allen and some other guys having to walk out the door, right? Mm-hmm. The point I'm making here is this. Herbert has not been signed to the big long-term deal yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right, correct.
Okay, so I mean, that you talk about a team that, at least according to the gist of this article, that is in big trouble, knowing that they've got to sign their quarterback. Now, the Bengals, if you believe reports, that they've built up this sort of war chest, right, of this money coming in. They're way under the cap, $40-something million, whatever it might be. Do you think at the end of the day, the Bengals are going to be able to keep Burrow, Higgins, and Chase?
Going to be able to?
Yeah.
Yes, they're able to. I'll break the news. They're able to. 100%. That's not even now. Are they willing to, knowing that their structure of their team, their core, 3 of the maybe big six that you end up paying are going to be Burrow, Chase, Higgins. That remains to be seen. But yes, absolutely, they can do that. And let's just use the Chiefs as the example, right? They're paying Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones, and they pay Joe Tooney at guard, and they're paying Orlando Brown this year as a top of the tackle money because he was franchise tagged. Like they pay people. It's not like they haven't paid guys, and obviously they had Hill under contract for multiple years too, and then decided to move off probably at the right time, by the way, because he's as good as he was this year. At some point, you'd think he would slow down a little. So, yeah, I think the Bengals can certainly do that. Now, worst case, do they trade Higgins like some have said? No, I don't think so. I think the worst case for the Bengals is they have this trio together for the next 2 seasons and franchise tag him for the 2024 season. And if I'm T. Higgins, I would look at that, and he's young enough to where you could sign an extension this offseason and still get big money again before you turn 30. And that's that magic number when it comes to receivers usually. So wouldn't be shocked at all if he takes maybe a shorter term deal as well and then cashes in again in 2026.
All right, let me ask you this. I thought it was – look, I don't know what happened, and I don't know if anybody is ever truly going to know what happened. Mixon was in the news last week. There's been a lot of talk about his contract, about his lack of playing time compared to Samaje Perine in the AFC Championship game. I think Perine had nearly double the number of snaps. Do you think Mixon's back here next year?
Here's the thing is I like Joe. I think he's a great addition to the locker room, and I think he is a good player. But, and there's the but, you knew a but was coming. Is it worth $12 million, what he brings? Is it worth that, given the climate, given what that money could mean elsewhere? I think it's, if I had to guess, I would say no, because is he willing to restructure his deal? If he's willing to restructure his deal, then I think all bets are off because they really like him. They think he's a productive player. And yeah, he's not the best pass blocker in the world, which is why Samaje Perine got so many snaps specifically in the AFC Championship game. But they still like Joe. But do you like Joe for the money you're paying Joe? And to me, the answer is no. And again, I really like him. I think he's a great addition to the locker room and brings energy and all of those things. But notice I didn't mention yards per carry or explosive runs or touchdowns or amazing pass blocker or anything on field. And I think he's good, but I don't think he's a perfect fit. I think the perfect fit in this offense is a running back by committee, 2 high-end pass blocking backs that can catch out of the backfield. Joe Mixon can catch out of the backfield, was really good at that this year. That can also run between the tackles and get to the edge and do all of those things. And I just, right now, I don't see him as that. I think he struggled as a pass blocker for most of his career, not with the physical part of it, but the mental part of it, especially now that I think this offense is as complex as they've ever been, and it'll probably continue to trend in that direction. I would lean, if I'm the Bengals, towards moving on if he's not willing to restructure. I don't know if they'd be willing to do that for sure, but to me, you just look at it, and I think the writing is on the wall that if you can't rework his deal, that Joe Mixon might be better off, or you might be better off without Joe Mixon rather next season.
Okay, well then that begs the question, right? Okay, you figure if you do let him go, he won't restructure the deal. If you let him go and you bring Perine back, and we've seen what Perine can do. I mean, he's not been the lead back, but a couple of games where he was a lead back, he was pretty damn good. Do they have anybody on the current roster that could be that, the other half of that quote-unquote committee, or do they have to go out and try to find a free agent? Do they have to try to go draft somebody and count on a rookie to do that?
Mm-hmm. They'll have to go out and get somebody. And Samaje Perine is a free agent as well, so he's probably going to want to pay bump. So you're already looking at that. Travion Williams is a free agent as well, and he overtook Chris Evans for that third running back spot last year. I like him. I think they trust him as a pass blocker, but he is small, and I don't think he's a true person to fit that role, even though he's a good special teamer and can be that RB3 for you. So, yeah, this is a draft situation to me. Maybe you go in free agency and get someone, if you think that they can serve as that right now, an instant plug and play value type guy. But I look at the Bengals history, and Tom, time and time again, what have they drafted? They've drafted running backs in the second round, Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill. They went and got Joe Mixon, obviously, in the second round, and they loved his talent, obviously, and had a first-round grade on him in that draft. So I think that's what they would do, is draft a running back pretty early. If you could find 2023 Giovanni Bernard, I think that's the perfect fit, just to give fans and viewers an idea of what the Bengals should be looking for. Really good pass blocker, dynamic, can run between the tackles if you need him to, isn't an every down back necessarily, but you want to talk about a committee that would work really well with Joe Burrow in a pass-first offense. If you could find rookie Giovanni Bernard, that would certainly be my target, at least.
All right, but let me, okay, so let's just assume for a second that that's the avenue they took in the second or even third round. There have been some mock drafts that have come out here recently. Hayden Hurst is a free agent, okay, and he had a really nice year for you, really nice year, and became very popular with the fan base, et cetera, et cetera. But a couple of the mock drafts have Michael Mayer perhaps hanging around at number 28. Kid, of course, who grew up here, phenomenal career at Notre Dame. I think most of us felt like if he was the number one tight end in college football last year. Some might argue that, but nonetheless, he's one of the top. Knowing your offensive line situation, knowing your defensive line situation, now all those guys are back, so, the defensive line, and the same thing along the offensive line, under contract at least. I mean, do you see where the Bengals could pick a tight end in the first round and a running back in the second round and not address either offensive or defensive line? Do you see that as a possibility, where they're saying basically what I asked you last week? They go all in on offense.
I do see that as a possibility. And the reason I see it as a possibility is because we don't know what free agency is going to bring. This Bengals offensive line, there are questions, but last year going into the draft, after they had addressed offensive line, I know I was talking about it. Oh, will they draft the center early? The kid from Iowa was certainly someone that I was interested in. And the Bengals, I have it on pretty good authority, I don't think they were going to take him. And they were looking at other spots in the first round. And really towards the tail end of the draft, when you're drafting at the end of a round, in the end of round one, I don't think you can pigeonhole yourself into any one position. And so tight end certainly on the board. I know last year safety was on the board early, and it felt weird to say it, but it was. And then leading up to that draft, I think that they realized that if Daxel falls, he might be the best player available, and that's why they took him. So could Michael Mayer be that this year? Absolutely, I think he could be. And we've seen this Bengals team the past couple of years, how they've built things, whether it's fair or not, whether it's the right way or not, they're not going to force it in the offensive line room. And they're going to find guys they like. Cordell Volson, for example. I didn't think they were going to wait till round 4 last year to take an offensive lineman, and yet they did. So wouldn't shock me, depending on what happens in free agency, of course, if they went with a tight end or a player like that helps the offense. And then in the second round, if the running back's there that they really, really love, I could certainly see that. But just a reminder, they're drafting at the end of each of these rounds.
Yep.
So the top running back that they're hoping is there in round 2, and they realized this last year with like Cam Taylor-Britt and other guys drafting at the end of the round, most of your board's already picked apart by the time you get there.
Okay, I want to ask you 2 last questions. When do you think, and Zach Taylor said, look, this kind of thing is already in motion in regard to a contract for Burrow. Everybody assumes, and maybe you are too, everybody assumes that this gets done this offseason. But the point is, it doesn't have to get done this offseason. Do you think it will get done this offseason?
I do, because if you're Burrow, it's going to be really, really hard to turn down that type of money. I don't think that the Bengals are going to be the Ravens, where they're maybe not fully in on you as a player. And really, I don't think it's as simple as Burrow naming his price, but I think the Bengals just know, all right, it's going to cost us $50 million plus per year. And so how can we structure this so it's team friendly? Can we lock him up for more years than just 3 or 5, or 3 is probably out of the question, but 4 or 5? Can we get him to sign a 7-year deal or an 8-year deal or go the Mahomes route, a 10-year deal?
Yeah.
That would favor the Bengals. That would help the Bengals some in their quest to not only keep those parts that we were talking about, but continue to add to this team. So I think that's where the negotiation will be. Other than that, I think it's pretty simple. It's going to be more than Aaron Rodgers' deal, and he's going to reset the quarterback market. And it's a matter of how many years does he want? How many years are the Bengals willing to doll out? And of course, the guaranteed money matters a ton. I don't think the Bengals are going to flinch much here. They're going to go against the grain of what they've done with every other contract in their history, and they're going to give Burrow a ton of guaranteed money because that's what the market says. That's, to me, why they have Paycor Stadium and not Paul Brown Stadium. It's why they have all these sponsors that we've seen over the past year and a half. It's to get the cash ready to go to put it in escrow because they know that Joe Burrow's guaranteed money is going to be huge.
All right, last question I want to ask you about. A.J. Green announces his retirement. Yeah. Reflect for a minute because you had a chance to be around the guy. And I've never heard anybody ever say a bad word about the guy. I've had a chance to meet him a number of times, but that was in and out of a brief meeting, doing games down there. When you think of A.J. Green, the first thing you think of is?
Oh, man. Him high-pointing deep balls from Andy Dalton that most receivers would have no business of being able to catch. And his body control and ability to make big plays deep downfield was really unique. And it's weird, Tom, because the way it ended over the past, really 2018 got off to a good start, but 2017 gets injured and is dealing with that throughout the year. 2018 gets injured. The way it ended here, I think it's going to go down. He's going to go down as one of the most underrated players in franchise history because people are going to forget what he was because of what came next. Burrow, Chase, Higgins, this era is going to continue to be probably the brightest in Bengals history. Certainly we've seen it thus far through a couple of years. So I think Green's going to get overlooked some, and he shouldn't because he was so good. I think he was a big reason why Andy Dalton got a second contract and that $96 million deal that he got from the Bengals because he just made Andy look so good, and he was clearly their MVP for multiple years before it was such a receiver-driven league, and he just didn't have that playoff productivity that you were hoping for as a team. The entire team didn't. But overall, I think he's one of the, as of now, 3 or 4 best receivers in Bengals history.
Yep.
It's him, Chad, Isaac, and Jamar. I mean, Jamar's probably already in the conversation, as weird as that sounds. I think those are probably the 4.
Do you think, this is the last question, do you think, and we were talking about this before you joined us, do you think it makes any sense, or do you think the Bengals would be open to one of those situations, or maybe it means nothing to AJ or the Bengals or anything like that? You think they sign him to a 1-year deal and he retires as a Bengal?
A 1 year or
1 day deal. Pardon me,
Okay.
1 day deal.
Gotcha. Maybe. I don't know if it matters enough to either side, right?
Okay.
I think that's something maybe behind the scenes that would have been discussed. I know this, despite how it ended. And by the way, most of the times these things end sort of ugly. That doesn't mean that you can't love and respect the guy and the organization and everything. I think that the next time we see him might be Ring of Honor time, which will be a heck of a moment for sure.
I tell you, the one guy that, he's going to end up in the Ring of Honor one day, but I tell you, you talk about the way it ended ugly is the whole Carson Palmer thing. That's one of those where
Will he?
Do you think he'll end up in a Ring of Honor?
I don't think so.
You know what? Now that you say it, I don't think he will either. That thing, he just never lets it go.
And not because he wasn't talented enough. Yeah,
he just won't let it go. I just don't understand, and I'm sure there are a lot of things that went on.
What did he say recently?
No, I'm just saying over the last year or two, it seems like it comes up.
Oh, okay.
He'll be on a podcast or he'll say something, and you're just like, man, let it go. Move on. And anyway, that's neither here nor there. James, thank you so much for your time and your insight. It's always fabulous to have you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, James Rapine, kind enough to join us. It's good stuff.
Of course, always.
We got to get into that Carson Palmer stuff one day. I don't understand it.
Maybe when he says something again.
Well, and he will because he just won't let it go. And I have no doubt that there was stuff behind the scenes that not one of us is aware of, and whether it was players getting in trouble or, stuff going on with the coaching staff or not willing to spend money on this or spend money on that like they're spending money now. It was a very different organization then. So I have no doubt that a lot of the things he says are spot on about the Bengals franchise and the way it used to run because everybody in the town knew it. They weren't spending any money. They weren't doing this. They weren't doing that. They're practicing outside. Everybody else has an indoor facility, blah, blah, blah. So, those were a lot of things as far as just looking out for the players that Carson Palmer has vented and talks about. And, I'm sure it'll be in the news one day. It might even happen this week. Well, no, the Bengals aren't there, so he won't bring it up. So I'm going to throw it to the Ham and Eggers.
Okay.
And today we're going to talk about, we're going to get into some of the quarterbacks. By the way, Tracy Jones cannot join us today. He's got a situation that he needs to take care of and handle. So it's just going to be us until noon. We'll take some calls. Okay? Yep. But we're going to talk about some of the scenarios in two areas. We're going to start getting into college basketball conferences where Paul, has broken everything down. He knows where everybody's ranked and everything going on. What teams today, if the tournament were being selected tonight, what teams do we think would be in the NCAA tournament? What teams would be out? What about the UC Bearcats? What are their chances? Starting to play well. What if they went out? And what if they win a game or two in the conference tournament? You get up to 24, 25 wins. Is that good enough to get in? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about some of these other quarterback scenarios around the NFL because a lot is being written about. And you just heard James Rapine talking about, they pay Burrow $50 million a year. Aaron Rodgers is making $53 million for this upcoming season. $53 million. Devontae Adams walked out the door. There's a lot of talk in Green Bay that they're going to trade Aaron Rodgers. Lamar Jackson, still no movement on his contract. Are they going to tag him? Derek Carr, he's a decent player. He's nothing great. But somebody's going to sign him. He's looking for a trade. Hadn't happened yet. So there are some things going on here that we're going to get into today. So lots coming your way on Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We introduce the Ham and Eggers. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Tom. Casey, how we doing?
We're doing good.
Good.
We're doing great.
Good. Like Tom said, we're going to do a Bearcats segment here coming up in just a few minutes. We're going to do a lot on the Bearcats because I think that as they start to play better here, there's more and more to talk about. So because of that, we'll have a Bearcats report, and the Bearcats report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and what, Casey? Productivity. Visit encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here. There is also a new premium alkaline water, and it is right here in front of us, as it always is. The cap is screwed on tight today. Pawnee. I saw somebody in the Discord say they had Pawnee for the first time the other day. I hope you enjoyed it. I forget who that was, but somebody said they had it and enjoyed it. We love it. We have it here every day. Made in Hamilton, Ohio, right where we are, right in these studios in downtown Hamilton. Pawnee uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water that is also, quote, the best tasting water in the world. Visit their website at pawneewater.com. That is P-A-H-H-N-I water.com. P-A-H-H-N-I water.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. We do need another shipment of it if the Pawnee guys are listening.
Yeah, we really do. I need some right now, honestly.
I've been holding on to this one bottle because we have been out the last couple of days, so I've been holding on to the one bottle that we have left here. I don't see any others. Usually we have a whole case, a whole shipment of them. Casey.
Yeah. Well, first off, not too picky later today. You gotta.
Yes, we do have not too picky later today at noon. A lot of people, the haters are furious at not too picky, and I can't blame them.
Yeah, this was also one of those nights too where not that I like completely whiffed on Marcus.
Marcus Brogdon. Also Malcolm Brogdon.
It's Malcolm Brogdon.
I wondered if Reed was maybe doing that to fact check before I put the graphic out, and then he texted me and said, no, I was just putting what Casey said on the graphic.
I messaged him Marcus and not Malcolm. That was my mistake. I take full onus on that. And that just set the tone for the whole slate. It was incorrect, and so that I'm taking full responsibility. I don't care that you guys made picks. It was a bad omen, the fact that I wrote Marcus instead of Malcolm.
Yep.
So if you took those bets last night, that is on me. Tonight's going to be a lot better, though, because we've got a lot slated tonight.
Yeah, ton of fun tonight. UC does play tonight. And, Tom, do you want to get right into that now, or how do you want to?
Let's get right into it.
Okay.
Let's get right into it.
So what do you want to – we have a couple of conferences. We're going to break down the 6 power conferences plus the AAC, and we'll start alphabetical order. We'll just go down the list. We'll start with the AAC.
All right, so we'll do like 2 or 3 of these a day.
Yeah,
kind of getting through it. So
2 a day.
You want to start with the AAC.
AAC and the –
Put them up, whatever form you got. You got anything we're putting up?
I don't. We will tomorrow.
Okay.
Because for the AAC, there's really only 2 teams, tournament teams to talk about right now. But with the AAC and the ACC that we'll talk about today, I'll get into some more with graphics and everything tomorrow.
By the way, just one quick topic. Everett, away from basketball for a minute. Everett said, Tom, did you see the Waste Management Open field? I did.
It's loaded.
And Tiger coming back.
Tiger's in it?
Tiger's playing. How about that?
I didn't see that.
I thought that's what I read yesterday. Everett, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I thought I saw he's playing there for the first time since 2012. I thought I read that.
Wow.
I hope, because I'm going to be there. I will be there.
I did not see that, so that's good.
Yeah, it's really good, if it's true. Hopefully it wasn't some article that I clicked on because I couldn't see a date line on it. All right, let's go to
I don't think he is.
I thought I read that.
He could be. I'm not seeing it anywhere.
Okay, if you just type in Tiger Woods, right?
I don't think
and
he's
you go
playing.
to news.
I see Ellen Nordegren.
Well, nothing wrong with that. News says right here. Yeah, that's dominating the whole thing, isn't it? I thought I saw it was that it came up that he was playing.
I don't think so, but I'm sure
I could be wrong. Okay.
Sir Boy Wonder says it's time for you to get some new glasses.
He might be right. I have to stop at I might have to stop at Walgreens on the way back.
Well, like Boom Shakalaka says, if Sir Boy Wonder 513 doesn't post it, it must not be true.
Yeah, if it's not a Sir
Okay,
bomb,
it says Tiger's not playing. Okay, I'm off my rocker. Okay, all right, never mind.
Man, you got my hopes up there.
Me too. I got my hopes up. All right, let's get to so my bad there. We got the American Athletic Conference.
Yes.
Okay, so Houston clearly is an NCAA tournament team. They're ranked 2nd in the country. They are a legitimate, as you put up yesterday, national title contender.
Yeah, they are. And I'm going to do the rest of this week, probably Thursday as the week goes on before we get into the weekend. Thursday or Friday, I'll do a Final Four, second weekend, those types of teams. And I'll do that like a tier maker. Just in my opinion, where we are, where we're sitting right now, Houston is a consensus number 1 seed. There's no doubt about that. Houston is, barring some sort of game that Houston loses that they shouldn't in the AAC because maybe they're just bored with the AAC competition, Houston's going to be a number 1 seed.
And probably in the South region.
Probably.
Because there's no Duke or North Carolina or anybody like down there.
Yeah, probably in the South region. And then outside of Houston in the AAC, Memphis is the only other team that's in the field right now that is in the AAC. And they're not in everybody's brackets. They're in the vast majority of brackets. They'll probably be in the tournament. But right now, Memphis is in danger of going to Dayton. And if that kind of tells you the state of the AAC, where they are and what we're talking about with the conference right now, it's a 2-bid conference, and Memphis is squeaking by to get in probably as a 10 or 11 seed. let's do the Bearcats report. Let's go through.
All right, well, let me just, to give you an idea about how every game at this point, if you're UC and you're trying to make a case to get in, every game is a very important game. They basically got to win out, and then they got to do some other things, which we'll get to here in a minute. But you have Houston, the leader in the conference, by 2 games over Tulane, who UC plays tonight, and Temple. Tulane is 16-7 on the 15-7 on the year. Then you have Memphis at 7-3. So a half game out of second, 17-6 overall. And you have Cincinnati 7-4. So if they win tonight, they would be in third place with Memphis if they win that game, and they would go to 17-8 on the year. Tell me, is there any way?
Yes.
If they don't win the American Athletic Conference tournament, but let's assume for a second, just hypothetically, let's say they won every other game they played the rest of this season. So you would have Tulane, South Florida, East Carolina, UCF again, Temple, Memphis, SMU. So at the end of the regular season for the UC Bearcats, they would have 23 wins against 8 losses going into the tournament. Let's assume they won 2 games in the tournament. 25, 26, and 8. They lose to Houston in the championship game. Any chance of getting in?
I don't think so. Right now, Cincinnati is 75th in the net right now, which is the tool that the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee uses to get teams in. And when I say I don't think so, I would bet my life savings that Cincinnati doesn't get in the tournament this year because they're 0-5 in Quad 1, which is the best of the best. That's the teams that you play that are the top-tier competition. They're 0-5 in those games. They're 2-2 in Quad 2 games. So you only have 2 wins in the top 2 quadrants. That's not going to get it done. And they have a Quad 3 loss. So, and that was the Northern Kentucky road loss where he only scored 11 points in the second half. Cincinnati just doesn't have the resume right now to get in. They are playing better, but the committee doesn't look at how you played in your last 10 games like they used to. That used to be a metric that they looked at was last 10, last 5. They don't do that anymore. They just look at your entire body of work.
All right, let me ask you this real quick. Are they not ranked significantly higher than that in the Palm ranking?
I got to be honest, I don't look at that.
Okay, all right.
They may be.
I thought they were 60th in that.
They may be. I don't know. So if you look at the net, which you could say it has its flaws, whatever, but that's what the tournament committee uses.
Okay.
So that's what you look at.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. And you look at AP poll, you look at all these other things that matter. You look at KenPom, whatever. They look at a couple of things. They look at the net. They look at a little bit at KenPom, but they look at the net. Tulane tonight is a Quad 2 game. UCF was a Quad 2 game for Cincinnati. But the problem is UC just doesn't win the big games. They have 2 Quad 2 games, Quad 1 games left for UC. They play at UCF and they play at Memphis. When you talk about, Tom, getting into the tournament by winning out and then winning 2 games in the conference tournament, those 2 games in the conference tournament that they would have to win would probably be over Houston and over Memphis. But the problem is that if you are talking about not getting into the tournament because you didn't win the conference tournament, you beat Houston and you beat Memphis in the AAC tournament, then that means you're taking on a loss that you can't afford to take in the championship game, and you've reset yourself. So I don't see a road right now to getting into the tournament unless they win the conference tournament, which if you're a UC fan, you should have won that game against Houston in Houston 2 weeks ago. And Cincinnati's been playing very well lately. David Julius is a monster. He's everything that Wes Miller hoped he would be and more. He's been playing great. He's been hitting shots when they need to. They were winning by 1 this past weekend against UCF at home. He steps up with about a minute to go and hits a step-back 3 from the top of the key. Great shot. He's been tough as nails. He's been a really good player for Cincinnati. As a point guard, that's what you need out of him, especially as an undersized guy. Victor Locken has come on really strong. He has been phenomenal this year. I mean, he had 20 points against UCF this past weekend. 18 of those 20 points came in the second half. He's had monster block numbers. His defensive rating's been really good. So UC has these pieces. Landers Nolly, of course. Yeah, Memphis transfer.
Yeah.
And somebody that's been around high major basketball. Nolly started at Virginia Tech, then went to Memphis. Now he's at UC. So UC has the pieces, but stacking wins doesn't matter really to the NCAA tournament. You look at a team like Charleston that was on the nation's longest winning streak forever, and they're a mid-major team, but they're probably not going to get in unless they win the conference tournament. Yeah. You could win 30 games, but if you're not beating the teams that you need to beat to get in, this kind of goes back to the argument you had yesterday, Tom, where let's say Cincinnati, they've won 2 in a row right now, and that would mean they would finish on a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-game winning streak to end the regular season. And you'd have 2 quad 1 wins mixed in there with 2 quad 2 wins. So you would end up having 6 wins in the top 2 quadrants. You would at least put yourself in a conversation with that. Then you would maybe if you beat Houston and you beat Memphis in the AAC, you'd at least be flirting. But the damage has been done to this point where you haven't won those huge games that just by stacking wins, that's not going to be enough. And the problem is I just don't see Cincinnati and the way they've been playing winning 9 games to close out the regular season.
I can't argue that. But you're saying you think at the end of the day in the AAC there is a very strong chance outside of anyone else, of course, getting an automatic bid by winning the conference tournament. You think that the only team, as we sit here today, and that's what we're doing here, it's just today, the only team out of the AAC that makes the NCAA tournament for sure is Houston and maybe Memphis.
I think Memphis will get in. I think Memphis will end up getting in. I think they might get sent to Dayton, but I think they'll end up getting in. But I think that's it. I think the AAC is a 2-bid league. UCF's had a nice year, but they're on the outside looking in. I mean, if you want to talk about a team that's going to get in, if you want a 3-bid AAC, it's not Cincinnati, it's UCF. So if you're going to talk about a team that's a third team out of the American that's going to get in, UCF has had a decent year, and they're ranked higher than UC in the net right now.
Yeah,
they haven't
if UC beats them again, it's 2 wins against them.
Yeah, they haven't been playing as good or they haven't been playing as good lately. But again, just like UC, the one thing that's going to keep them out is the bad losses. UCF has 2 losses in quad 3 and a quad 4 loss. That's just not going to get you in. It's just where these teams, these middle-of-the-pack AAC teams, just aren't getting the top-tier wins that they need to get. So I don't see a way that UC gets in unless they win the conference tournament, which, again, if Houston ends up on the other side of the bracket, say Houston and Memphis have to play each other, and UC can get into the final by beating, Tulane, maybe a UCF, a couple of those types of teams, like a Tulsa in the first round maybe, and you beat UCF and you get into the final and you catch lightning in a bottle against Houston in a game that Houston doesn't really care about.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. You have it. You have it there. You played Houston tough a couple of weeks ago. So, in both games, honestly, both games that UC played against Houston, the first game was more of a blowout, but it was still like a 10-point game.
All right, but you're still saying the bottom line is you don't think they're going to get in outside of winning the conference tournament and maybe a win or two, and maybe, like you said, if they get locked up with Memphis and Houston again on their way to the final and win there. Period. End, right?
Yeah, I think UC, the bottom line here is UC's got to win the American.
Okay.
But they are playing better, and I think that's the biggest thing to take away here if you're a UC fan is there was a point in the season, and I talked about this on today's Rebound Rundown with Rick Broering. There was a point in the season for Cincinnati where they lost to Temple on New Year's Day. They lost by 9 at Temple. And frankly, they got blown out in that game. It ended up being 9, but that was an ugly game. And you're thinking to yourself, you're 10-5 at that point, you're 1-1 in the AAC, and you're thinking, uh-oh, what's going on here? We lost to NKU, lost to Temple, don't really have a good win. This isn't good. But then, since then, you have 3 losses. 2 of them are to Houston, one's to Memphis, both tournament teams.
Yeah.
So things are starting to look better. You're bringing talent back next year. Victor Locken will be back. You're bringing some pieces back that will play in the Big 12 that is at least, if you're a Cincinnati fan, giving you some signs of encouragement that, that they will be something next year, at least be competitive in the Big 12, where earlier this year you were nervous that was going to happen.
Well, that whole thing moving next year, both on the football front, that seems to be what most people talk about more than anything else, because people talk about football more than they do anything else.
Yeah.
But, they're all thinking, okay, what would be a good year for football next year? And then you start going, well, what would be a good year for basketball next year? Ooh. All right. What's our next conference up?
ACC.
The Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah.
All right. So let's punch them in here, because it's a very weird ACC season.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah. So the ACC, you can start at the top. The ACC right now, the first place team in the ACC is Clemson.
Yeah, 10-3.
There is a very good chance that Clemson misses the NCAA tournament, and they are currently in first place in the ACC, and that just tells you what kind of a state the ACC is in right now. That Clemson is 18-6, they're 10-3 in the conference, and they're projected to miss the tournament.
Okay, after them, you have Pitt and Virginia.
Yep.
Virginia's a lock.
Yep, Virginia,
tied at 9-3 behind Clemson. And then you have the Miami Hurricanes, got a big win over Duke last night, at 10-4. And then you start drifting into the NC States, the Dukes, the North Carolinas. Okay, how many of these teams make the tournament?
So I think that the ACC will end up being a 6-bid league. Right now, you could comfortably say that there will be 5 teams in. I think Virginia, Duke, Miami, NC State, and North Carolina are in. Clemson, Virginia Tech, and Pitt are the teams that I'm looking at that are on the outside looking in right now that I think have a very good shot to get in.
Virginia Tech's 4-8 in a bad league.
They are 4-8 in a bad league, but look at what they did. Virginia Tech won the ACC tournament last year, and they're playing better lately. The problem with Virginia Tech is they had that horrific losing streak to start the ACC. So I think that's probably what will keep them out, but I think they are definitely at least in the conversation for it. I don't think they'll end up getting in. I think they took on way too much water in the beginning of the conference season, but they are the highest ranked net team that is currently projected out of the tournament. They're at 50th right now, but I just don't know if Virginia Tech gets in unless they really have a strong February. Pitt has positioned themselves to get in. I could see Pitt getting in. They've had a great season, Jeff Capel. Pitt does have a quad 4 loss, but they have 5 quad 1 wins. They've had a really nice year. That loss to Florida State is what's killing them. A few games ago, that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they lost to Florida State. They have a loss to Florida State. They have a loss to Vanderbilt. But other than that, they've pretty much taken care of business. They have a win over Virginia. Pitt was in contention for the regular season title. They still are. They're only a half game back of Clemson. But Clemson right now, Tom, Clemson's a wild case study in college basketball because they have 3 losses to teams ranked 175th or worse. And they're first in the ACC. So Clemson has lost to South Carolina, who's terrible. South Carolina is 243rd right now. They lost to Loyola Chicago by 18 on December 10th, and they lost to Boston College by 8. They've lost 2 in a row, Clemson has. Right now, Clemson started 10-1 in the ACC, but they've lost 2 in a row. They're still in first in the ACC, but they're not looking good. Season's not looking good for Clemson right now. So that's where we sit in the ACC. Virginia is an absolute contender. I know they lost to Virginia Tech. That was on the road, though, in a rivalry game. I think Virginia is the only true team that I would trust out of the ACC right now. Miami looked great last night against Duke, but Duke stinks. North Carolina's not very good either. People were talking about over the weekend, Duke beats UNC by 6 and then gets blown out by Miami last night. What does that say about UNC? I would trust Virginia, and that's about it out of the ACC. NC State's had a good year, but like I said, it's wild to say that the team in first place in the ACC right now has a very good chance of missing the tournament.
It's hard to believe. And that would be the first time, I'm sure, ever.
Well, if they end up winning, they'll get in. Like, if they end up winning the tournament, you're not going to keep the ACC regular season champion out of the NCAA tournament. But, boy, it's There's a conversation to be had. I'll tell you that. But if Clemson wins the ACC, that would mean that they would have beaten Virginia, beaten North Carolina, beaten NC State down the stretch, and you're not taking another bad loss, and you probably are winning a game or two in the ACC tournament. So that's the ACC for you. That's the AAC for you. It's your 15-minute breakdown. We'll have more tomorrow. Big 12, Big East probably tomorrow. Big 10 maybe. But anything, Tom? I
want to circle back for a minute to this Syracuse thing.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I mean, I had a long conversation with my dad about this last night. It got me going into reading more about, some of the comments of Jim Boeheim. 47 years he has been the head coach at Syracuse University basketball and has had incredible success. One of the three, I think, he might be number 2 all winningest coach in terms of wins in the history of college basketball. Somewhere, top 4, top 5. So he comes out, if you're not familiar with this, he comes out and after berating college students who were just trying to, ask legitimate questions, and the one where he went off was asking about a player's availability. He goes off on the kid. Come on. It's all you need to know. When you're badgering college kids, come on. This is Jim Boeheim. He's 78 years old, okay? When you're 40 and maybe you're getting going in your career, you're 30-something, you fly off the handle, and okay, all right. But 78, come on. So he makes the comments about this whole NIL thing, and he names 3 schools in his league that he says went out and bought players, bought their team because of the NIL. He says Pitt, Wake, Miami. Right? Okay. Well, blowback came initially from the Wake Forest coach, Steve Forbes. Not happy at all. But did you see the comments made by Rutgers assistant coach Brandon Knight?
I heard about them. I did not see them all.
All right. Now, he played and coached in the same league, okay, with Syracuse, back when Syracuse was in the same conference with Pitt. He was a player there and later a coach there. His comments yesterday on social media, so they're there for every day for us to read. He says, "This sounds like sour grapes. Next time, someone please ask Boeheim how many teams he bought before NIL was legal." He says, "Don't throw stones in a glass house. Remember, you've been coaching a lot of years, and a lot of us know who got paid." Oh! Now, there's a guy who's not hiding behind some anonymity thing, right? Can you believe that? It's stunning. It's stunning. And then he comes out and he talks about he being Jim Boeheim, that he can do whatever he wants and everything is on his terms. The last 2 years, they're only 3 games over 500. They're 85th in a ranking this year. They had 17 straight 20-win seasons, and now they haven't had one since 2019. Pat Forty wrote an interesting article about the emperors at these colleges, right? Yeah. We talk about football more than basketball. The Sabans of the world. He's an emperor down there, right? When you win as much as he does, you should be the emperor. You should be the king, the emperor, the queen, the court jester, whatever you want to be, right? Unfortunately, the court jester is what this is turning into with Boeheim. But he talked about, Forty did, who writes for Sports Illustrated. He says, you had Krzyzewski, where he can pick his guy. You had Roy Williams, who wasn't there as long as Krzyzewski, but was the king, gets to pick his guy in Hubert Davis. And he goes on and on. Jay Wright at Villanova gets to pick his guy. When all of a sudden do these coaches get that kind of power? And who's to blame?
I think as all of this plays out, I'm going to be very interested to see how all of these coaches that were handpicked end up doing and how these programs end up recovering. And you look at like you said, Hubert Davis and Wes Miller was in the conversation for the North Carolina job. There were a lot of people that thought Wes Miller was going to be the next head coach after Roy Williams instead of Hubert Davis. Hubert Davis gets the job. John Shire gets handpicked by Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. Kyle Neptune gets handpicked by Jay Wright at Villanova. That Jay Wright handoff at Villanova happened in a matter of 2 or 3 hours. The announcement came from Jay Wright that he was retiring. Kyle Neptune was hired, or it was announced that he was hired the same night. So now as you get 5, 6, 7 years down the line, and this trend has started to emerge of these coaches, these perennial powers, handpicking their successors. Boeheim is, I don't know enough about Syracuse and the dynamics there to know if Boeheim is going to handpick somebody to success him or to succeed him. But man, it is a precarious situation for these schools that they're putting themselves in without doing necessarily a nationwide search. Was Kyle Neptune the best guy for the job at Villanova? They seem to think so, but we'll see how it turns out down the line. Was John Shire the best hire you could have had at Duke? We'll see how it turns out down the line. And right now, Kyle Neptune in his first year, I think the problem with Villanova is Kyle Neptune, it seems to me almost like Kyle Neptune is trying so hard to do the Jay Wright mold of these players, which to his credit, he has all Jay Wright players, so go ahead. But how these coaches end up molding the programs as they see it instead of trying to carry on what the previous coach did, like what John Shire. Think about it. John Shire was playing at Duke in 2010.
Yeah.
And now he's the head coach.
Yep.
It's crazy to think about.
Yep.
Boom, he's back already.
Now, their team, you got some freshmen, some transfers, and, I mean, who knows? But, I read his comments after the North Carolina game, Shire. I never remember Mike Krzyzewski saying things like this. He said there's so much pressure for these guys, talking about his kids, especially our guys who want to go pro. And whether it's this year or in the future, there's a lot of expectations and pressure. Now, I never remember Mike Krzyzewski talking about his players while they were at Duke in the middle of a season about pressure and about going pro. Do you? I'm not saying it didn't happen.
Well, Krzyzewski was never a one-and-done guy until, Kyrie got there.
Right.
And then you had, who was it, Jahlil Okafor? I'm trying to remember. Some of these guys, these newer age guys that Krzyzewski realized, we got to do the one-and-done thing. Everybody's doing it. We got to do it. We don't
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it at all. He was just behind the 8 ball. But it's funny when you say that about Krzyzewski because it's almost, in a sense, like what Nick Saban does, where everybody talks about Nick Saban being, I don't want to say behind the 8 ball, but it seems like Nick Saban might be like a year or two behind the curve, but then once he figures out whatever it is, whether it's an offensive scheme, whether it's the way that college football is evolving, whatever it is, it seems like Nick Saban might not be on the forefront of it, but then once he figures it out every year, he's going to be the leading guy at whatever he's doing because he's just Nick Saban and he's the best of the best. People are talking about that right now with NIL with him. So when you look at Nick Saban and when you look at a guy like Mike Krzyzewski who adapted into the one-and-done era and had Kyrie, had Jahlil, had some of these guys that were only there for a year, Paolo Banchero, a lot of these guys that were only there for a year and now have gone on to have successful NBA careers. It's interesting you say that about Krzyzewski in those comments because I don't know or recognize them either.
I mean, I just don't. Look, I don't know. Maybe I'm just an older guy, but I do have kids that are in college. And when you start making excuses, pressure, does anybody in their right mind believe for 3 seconds when a kid is getting ready to sign a national letter of intent to play basketball at Duke University on a basketball scholarship that there's not going to be pressure? Unbelievable pressure. Every game on national television. You're the Duke Blue Devils. All right? Never is Krzyzewski talking that nonsense. He's more worried about, Or are you going to show up to practice the next day and bust your ass and guard somebody? End of story. That's why you're there. That's why you're there. Your education's paid for. Go play basketball and bust your tail and show up ready to go and obey the rules. Deal with the pressure. We got people around here you can talk to about that, and they all do a good job of the mental health thing. That's all great. But don't just, coach laying it out there. Oh, my God, my guys and their pressure and the pro. Come on. Pressure is the kid who is trying to pay back the student loan, okay, who got into Duke that comes from nothing. I don't want to hear about it.
Tom, I got a question for you.
Don't want to hear it.
Because especially with you and your dad in North Carolina and how much you have seen of that program forever, when I think of blue bloods in college basketball, you think obviously Kentucky, you think North Carolina, Duke. Used to be UCLA, but I don't know if you'd put them in that category anymore. It used to be Indiana. I don't know if you'd put them in that category anymore. But you think of these teams, Villanova was right on the precipice of it, but then Jay Wright retired. And that comes to my point where how many of these schools are true blue blood, massive programs, and how many of them are just the coach? And I would argue that time will play this out as to whether Duke really is a blue blood. There is an argument to be made because if you think back at the North Carolina head coaches, and I don't want to miss anybody, so I have it here in front of me. You had obviously Dean Smith forever.
And you had Frank McGuire before him, won a national championship.
You had Frank McGuire before him. You had Dean Smith. You had Bill Guthridge in there, and then you had Matt Doherty for 3 years, but then you had Roy Williams for almost 20 years.
Right.
Coach after coach after coach with one miss in there, really.
Well, they couldn't at the time just because I'm familiar with it. Dean wanted Guthridge, who was his right-hand man for 40 years. He wanted him to take over the reins when Dean steps down. Guthridge wins a national championship, but he was an older guy, doesn't want to do it. They want to stay in the quote-unquote Carolina family. So now they're about to go out and make their next big move. They wanted Roy Williams from the start.
Did Guthridge win one? I think he got to one. Did he win it?
I think he won one.
Okay.
I think he did.
Okay.
But they wanted Roy. They couldn't get Roy.
Yeah.
Matt Doherty's at Notre Dame. Matt Doherty's this beloved figure at North Carolina. He was the fifth starter. It's an answer to a trivia question, right? One of the great trivia questions there is out there. Of that 1982 North Carolina team that won the national championship where Michael Jordan hit the shot to beat Georgetown, you had James Worthy, Sam Perkins, Michael Jordan, point guard Jimmy Black, the other starter Matt Doherty. So they bring in Doherty. And I announced a number of games down there during that time. And it was not good. It was not good. They didn't have players, but they didn't wait long. And then they finally had the chance to go get Roy, and the rest is history.
And they got Roy. But my point, my question, I guess, that I'm teeing you up for here is you had Roy, but you had this lineage of coaches. You missed on Doherty, but you had this lineage. Coach K, what was Duke before Coach K?
Well, I mean, my dad was on the show last week. I remember like it was yesterday. Okay? Duke had won a national championship with Bill Foster. Or they got to the championship game. They got beat, I think, by Kentucky. They get
way back when.
Yeah, way back.
Yeah.
This is when, Jay Billis and all these guys are playing, right? So Jimmy Spinarkle, guys like that. Mike Jaminski. And so, now they start to go down. Okay? And they bring in this guy, Mike Krzyzewski, from Army. And everybody's like, what? But Duke's down. I mean, they're down, really down. And I remember I went with my dad. He talked about it last Wednesday. Went to a game where they played at Louisville at Freedom Hall on a Saturday afternoon. And I have never seen a team bludgeoned worse in my life in any sport than Duke was humiliated that day at Louisville. And many feel like that was a game that turned everything around for Krzyzewski and the Duke basketball program. Now they've become a quote-unquote blue blood that lasted 30-something years while he was there at Duke. Do I think they're capable of falling off the table? Absolutely I do. There's no doubt in my mind. They are capable. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But we'll find out if Shire's a guy. I don't know if he's a guy or not. I have no idea. I've met him, don't know him, knew Krzyzewski relatively well, and hopefully we get him on the show here sometime before the NCAA tournament starts.
Did you just say get Mike Krzyzewski on the show?
Yeah, we're working on it. I got one of the great Mike Krzyzewski stories of all time. Have I ever told you this story?
No, go ahead.
Okay. You're going to love this because it involves Xavier.
Okay.
All right, we're going to tie a ribbon around this college basketball talk and get into some football stuff in a minute. So I'm working for Channel 5 at the time. This is 1986, I think it was, or 87, 88, somewhere in there. And Xavier is going to the NCAA tournament. They get in, and it's announced that they're going to play the opening round in Indianapolis. Okay? If they win the game, they're going to play Duke. Now, bear in mind, Duke is just starting to do this, okay, with Krzyzewski. They're not there yet. They're just starting to do this, okay? So, at the beginning of the week, Thom is the sports information director at Xavier. He still is. Awesome guy, does a phenomenal job. And he says at Xavier's practice, they're practicing on a Monday, they're going to play on a Thursday. He says, all right, here's the deal. He tells all the local TV stations. He says, first come, first serve as far as the live shots go after the game. So whoever gets in first gets their guy. Now, no cell phones in those days. So I run to Schmidt Fieldhouse. This is before, the Cintas Center and all that stuff. They're playing at the Gardens. And I get on a payphone, and I call my boss, Ken Brew. He says, all right, we want Pete Gillen at 5:50. We want Byron Larkin at 6:20. Walk back in, tell Iser. He says, you're good. You're first. You got them both. And I'm like, sweet. I'm a young guy trying to get my career going. We're on it. Okay. So now we go to Indianapolis. We drive our satellite truck up there. Okay. We're an NBC affiliate at Channel 5. So wherever we're going to do the live shot, Xavier is playing at noon. Okay. So we're going to have to go to their hotel if they win the game, okay, and do the live shot. If they lose the game, we're kind of wondering what's going to happen, okay, because, they're going to get on a bus and go back to Cincinnati, right? Season over. They win the game. Okay. So we're in the locker room after the game. And Jeff Fogelson is the athletic director at that time. Well, now all the TV guys are screaming and yelling about wanting this guy and that guy, and we'll come to your hotel and blah, 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 blah. Jeff Fogelson says, all right, I'm tired of hearing it. He said, if everybody can't get somebody, then nobody's getting anybody. And I say to him, hold on a minute now, Jeff. I know you're the athletic director. I said, but you have a person that's responsible for doing this job, and he does it very well. And this is what he said would happen. First come, first serve. I said, so now you're saying no television station in Cincinnati is going to get these guys live? He says, that's exactly what I'm saying. I look at him and I say, you have got to be shitting me. I said, you just won an NCAA tournament game? I'm 24, 25. I said, you just won an NCAA tournament game? And you're not allowing a single person from your basketball program to be on local television? I said, am I hearing this right? He says, done deal. Well, I go into a tirade. Every piece of bad language you can use, I use. Guilty as charged. So now the second game is already underway. Duke is playing in the second game. Okay? So Xavier is going to play the winner of this game. So the Duke game ends, they win. It is now, they started at 2:30, it's now like 5:10. And I've got to be on a live shot outside the arena in March in Indianapolis. Mike Krzyzewski is sitting in his office, and there's a glass, you can see through the glass. And he's in there with Mike Bray, and I think Tommy Amaker and Quinn Snyder and some of these guys, they're all in there just the coaches. I start banging on the glass, and they're all looking at me like, who's this clown? So I walk up, and I walk in and said, Coach Krzyzewski, my name's Thom Brennaman. I said, I know you've worked with my dad in the past. You and I have had a chance to meet. I'm sure you don't remember me. I said, look, I'm kind of high and dry here. Is there any chance that I could get you to do a live interview with me at 5:50 since you're playing Xavier in the next round? I said, but the bad news is it's got to be outside the arena. He says, absolutely. No problem. Mike Krzyzewski comes walking outside, does the interview, right? I mean, and then years later, of course, I go on to be the Cubs announcer. He's from Chicago. He'd come into town all the time. Got to know him a little bit. I announced a number of games in the ACC with Fox. Got to know him a little bit better. So we're hoping we can get him on the show.
That's a great story.
Well, there's a lot more to it, but we will leave that part.
I bet there is.
There is a lot more to that story.
I bet there is.
Is that the?
But I will go on record as saying I love Tom Iser. Always have. He did a great job. And I love Jeff Fogels. Is he still alive?
I don't know.
Because he left to become the athletic director somewhere. I can't remember.
Yeah. No, he died in 2018.
Okay. I really liked him. I didn't agree with his decision that day, but I really came to like him quite a bit. He was a good man. So I'm not going to go on this show and make it sound like anything bad against Jeff Fogelson. He was just in the heat in the moment and trying to make a decision, and God bless him. But I really liked him a lot.
So that was the year that Xavier beat Missouri.
Yes.
And then lost to Duke the next round.
Who I think Duke beat Texas A&M in that game, if I remember right, in that opening round game, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We got about 25 minutes. No Tracy Jones today. And so we're going to talk about a lot is being written about these quarterbacks. And there are some big-time quarterbacks that could be changing teams in the offseason. And we're going to take a look at that right after we go to the Ham and Eggers, and I fill up on some Pawnee water. You got to visit their website, PawneeWater.com. That's P-A-H-H-N-I, P-A, 2 H's, N-I, water.com. It's the best tasting water in the world. We love these guys. And we wish them well in their meeting with UDF.
Oh, they
They're
got
ready to
one.
have a big powwow with UDF.
Oh, really?
We wish them well. No pressure on anybody. We love having both of them with us, but we wish them well.
Great.
All right. Take it away, boys.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Well, so this is the time of the show where we have the best part of the show.
Yeah?
The ham and egg segment. And I just wanted to say, we talked about in the last ham and egg segment
Yes.
that it was my fault for the not too picky graphic and whatnot. I, however, still went up 7 units yesterday.
7 units?
Yeah. No, that's
On what?
the NBA. Just
Casey, I am sick and tired of you coming in here and sitting here on this damn segment and then being like, oh, yeah, I won 7 units yesterday. Meanwhile, I haven't won anything since I can remember.
I won't lie.
I'm donating responsibly.
If I didn't take the not too picky graphic, I would have been up a lot of money yesterday.
Well, so would a lot of people.
But I have faith that we're going to get back on track, especially today. We're going to get back on track on that train. And don't worry, everyone. It's about just sticking with us through the tough times. So then when the good times do happen, you can enjoy it with us.
Reed did say, to be fair, yesterday on the box lunch that you should start fading him because he was like 10-0 in his last 11 games or something like that. You will be given NBA. I will force feed NBA picks from you on Not Too Picky today.
I did give out the one prop I gave out didn't hit, and then the others that I hit on like 4 props, missed on 3. So I didn't do great on props, but I did get a lot of the games, the actual games, the spreads right. And like Golden State just blew out. I can't remember who they were playing.
Yes. Yeah. I saw that last night. I don't remember who they played either.
And then the Celtics, I think they did really well too. But yeah, I mean, I'll give you some picks on it.
Real Spirit Cat makes a great point. I haven't been the same since the haircut. All of my luck evaporated. All of my luck evaporated with it. I have been responsibly donating to Fred for the last. I mean, I got VCU and St. Louis. I hit the under on Friday night for like less than a unit, and that's been it for almost 2 weeks. That's it. I can't do anything after the hottest stretch of my life for 3.5 weeks in January. Straight back.
Maybe it's just time that you live bet the first quarter.
Oh God, live betting a quarter?
No, hang on. Like not like the result of the first quarter, but like you wait until the first quarter gets rolling and then you make a decision.
Well, you made a great point last night about the Texas it was
Texas and Kansas.
Yeah.
I had put early on, like before the game started, I got in at 4.5, just like the graphic said, and then I just sat there and watched the game. I'm like, all right, they're not gonna lose by 12 points this game, which for a minute there they were losing by like 15, I think, at one point. But I think that is a reasonable strategy, at least.
Well, I would.
Everett says live betting is the path to the dark side.
It is.
It's like a gateway drug.
It is.
It's helped me out a lot. It saved my butt a few times.
Okay.
But I will admit it could hurt you if you're not too careful.
It's a very, very astute observation by Everett. And we bet live betting is the devil, says Reed Mouse.
It's true. It's tough.
Right.
Tom, you wanted to get into some stuff about the quarterbacks.
Yes. Now, look, you look around the NFL, and you've got just so many interesting scenarios here, right? You've got, as far as the quarterback position is concerned. Now, some of these guys are under contract, okay? But teams can, trade away their contract. They can opt out. You got a situation, let's start with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, now, will the Packers trade Aaron Rodgers? He is owed, let me check this, $58.3 million for this upcoming season. He basically held them up for ransom going into last year to redo his deal, right? We know about his buddy, Devontae Adams, arguably the best receiver in the league, walks out the door. Rodgers knew his best deal would come from the Packers rather than somebody else. So he secures a deal, but now all of a sudden he's open to leaving after getting the deal, and many believe that there are those in Green Bay that just on that alone are ready to cut ties with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, as just an NFL fan in general, I thought Rodgers was done last year. I don't know how he managed to get the deal and get it all figured out, but I think at this point, fans are just tired of him. I mean, Trace Fowler has been a Packers fan his whole life, and he loves Aaron Rodgers, or did. Now he can't stand the guy. He can't stand him. I think his overstayed his welcome. And if I were the Packers organization, I would look for a trade partner. And there is some quarterback desperate teams. There's a lot of them.
Now, a lot of people feel like, that the Packers might be sniffing around for potential trade partners. The Jets have gotten a lot of pub. Nathaniel Hackett, who used to be on Green Bay staff, worked with Rodgers. He's a new offensive coordinator for the Jets. The other landing spot that has many intrigued is Tennessee. Now, Rodgers is familiar with Vrabel. Vrabel knows what he's getting into. He knows exactly what he's getting into. And let's not forget now, Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, was the offensive coordinator under Vrabel at Tennessee before he got the head coaching job at Green Bay. So if, Vrabel wants to pick LaFleur's brain a little bit about what's going to go on down here, he certainly can reach out and do that. But many feel like, I bring this up, those two teams, because they say there's no way Green Bay is going to trade him inside the NFC. That if they do trade him, it's going to be to an AFC team, and the Raiders are another one of those teams. as a possibility.
Yeah, I think the natural connection between the two teams makes a lot of sense. You trade Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers, like a quarterback swap, and maybe you trade another player off the books for the Raiders, maybe like Hunter Renfrow or something like that. Get some of the guys off the books so you can keep Rodgers. They have $18 million in cap space currently. If you get Derek Carr off, that's 35 or 38 million extra. So they would be able to have enough, but they wouldn't have enough to spend anything else on free agency. So I expect if they do that trade that they'll do quarterback swap and a player trade, and maybe they'll throw in a draft pick or something like that. That brings Aaron Rodgers back with Devontae. That allows for the money situation to make sense, and gives them a change of scenery on both sides. Now, do I think it's the smart or the right decision? I don't know that, because right now the Raiders are trying to pay. They're trying to pay their running back right now. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Josh Jacobs. Yeah, that's right. Josh Jacobs, and he had a fantastic season last year. Now, we've had this conversation on the show, Box Lunch, where we tell people that it's pointless to pay running backs because they just never pan out. But those are the two teams that I would, see I can see like 85, 90% sure that I can see a trade happening there.
Okay, but here's a counter argument, okay?
Yeah.
And this is what one executive said in this piece that was written about it in The Athletic. I think this is the most telling of all, and if I own the Green Bay Packers, this sums it up for me in a nutshell as to whether or not I'm trading Aaron Rodgers. He says, I'd love to be the hypothetical owner in Green Bay listening to the general manager and president present the trade case to me. So then I could reply, okay, so you guys are saying, in summary, you want to trade an MVP caliber player who still creates 2 to 3 wins per season, so we as a franchise with our fan base can attempt to solidify our evaluation of a third-year drafted quarterback while he's throwing to sub-average weaponry around him. It sounds like we're patterning ourselves after our rivals, the Chicago Bears. If you're running the Green Bay Packers, would you rather not have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback than Love, than anybody else, to try to make another run at it to see what you could do?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. You would want Aaron Rodgers to be Aaron Rodgers. I think the issue is they got to make a decision as to whether or not Rodgers is truly still that quarterback or not.
Yep.
And if it were me, I think I would still ship him just because of the locker room drama and just the drama surrounding him. Just, it's not my style. I can't deal with that. If that were Joe Burrow, I think I'd be turned off by it. But for me, it makes sense. If you trade your quarterbacks, you trade a weapon to them. You're gaining another weapon. You're giving one more year for Jordan Love. You're at least not totally screwed at the quarterback position. If that doesn't work out, Derek Carr is serviceable enough. And really, Aaron Rodgers with the Packers all year last year was more or less just serviceable to begin with. So the situation for Derek Carr is better, in my opinion. I think
he's making a lot less money.
Yeah, I think the situations make sense. You at least give Rodgers what he wants. You reunite Derek Carr, and you reinvigorate the fan base for the Raiders. And for the Packers, you are giving yourself extra time, and you have more cap space to work around to build a better team around Derek Carr. And you're probably also getting a weapon. I imagine it would either be like Waller or Hunter Renfrow, someone that's a proven at least get you 800 yards a year type of player. And I think the development of the receivers for Green Bay, that's going to end up panning out. We're going to see if Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs is significant enough to not look for another receiver. I don't know. That to me, that just makes the most sense.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not a Derek Carr guy. And I think most of the people around the National Football League are not a Derek Carr guy when it comes to spending $30 million a year on Derek Carr. I think that's the most interesting situation of any of them. Because, I read where somebody made the comment, of course, anonymous comment, that if you're with another team, you're looking at saying, I'm going to pay Derek Carr $30 million? Who's Derek Carr more like? This was a quote. Is he more like Nick Foles or is he more like Kirk Cousins? I got to tell you, last time I checked, Nick Foles won a big game. Kirk Cousins is still looking to win a big game, and he's getting paid even more than $30 million. And the whole Derek Carr thing, I've never gotten it. I never understand it. There are a lot of people that know a lot more about football than I do that like him a lot. I think he's a good leader. Until the end, he lost me and really lost me at the end by all of a sudden not coming to practice and just stay away from the facility and all that nonsense. Not a Derek Carr guy. Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson, and we were talking a lot about this. Look, and you heard Brian Billick say it, a regular on the program. This was about 2 weeks ago after the Bengals had beaten the Ravens, so 3-4 weeks ago now. In the opening round of the playoffs, Lamar Jackson did not make the trip to Cincinnati. All the drama that played out, and I think everybody realizes he was hurt. But he didn't even come to the game. So, he can be franchise tagged. The last guy to get a franchise tag and then traded, there's been a lot of talk about this. The last time that happened is when Matt Castle signed as a quarterback with New England on a franchise tag. They traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs. He went along with Mike Vrabel, as a matter of fact. Goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Off he goes. So this is not a common occurrence in the NFL. Does that mean it can't happen again? Of course it doesn't mean it can't happen again. But if Lamar gets franchised and he's still looking for this long-term deal where all of the money is guaranteed like Deshaun Watson's contract, Joe Burrow, nobody is getting a Deshaun Watson contract. They might get the same amount of money over the lifetime of the deal, but they're not going to get the guaranteed money amount of the deal. Burrow would be the only guy that might have a chance because of who he is off the field and on the field. Right?
Right.
Chance. But Lamar Jackson is not that guy. He's been an MVP. Burrow is not. Although Burrow, I guess, technically is still in the running to get it this year, but we know he's not going to get it. Mahomes is going to win it. Jackson, can you build an offense around a guy? I mean, can you really build an offense around him? I mean, he's going to run the ball a ton. He's a dynamic athlete. Does he throw it well enough? Can you win games 38-35? He's won some of those games, but, there are a lot of people that wonder if you can build an offense around Lamar Jackson. I think it's safe to say, so anyway, back to Billick for a second, right? So Billick said, if somebody would have told me this thing's not going to get done 2 weeks ago, he says, I'd have told them they're out of their mind. He says, now, I'm not so sure anymore. I mean, if Lamar Jackson, and anybody that believes, and you might believe this, and so I'll say it ahead of time, if anybody believes that Lamar Jackson is going to get a franchise tag and not play, there is zero chance of that happening. Because that's about a $35 million walk-away from deal. And the last guy that walked away from a big-time deal tried to come back a year later, and he was never the same player again as Le'Veon Bell. There's no way Lamar Jackson is walking away from $30-something million and not playing football for a year.
I mean, you might have a point there just because they're both running backs. I mean, if you get a franchise tag and, as a running back, your life expectancy is really short. So all jokes aside, I really don't know. Lamar, to me, is a very special case because the Ravens are in a peculiar spot where they've built this team around him. Their cap space is really struggling. Like, the only way they could keep him is by tagging him. And I'm not so sure Lamar wouldn't sit out, Tom, because, yeah, you're right. It's $35 million that you're walking away from, maybe even 40. I don't know if that numbers.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be above north of 35. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's a lot of money to walk away from. But I think Lamar wants guaranteed. He wants that longevity, that contract, that commitment to him. And, if he demanded a trade, I think the Ravens would oblige. That's the weird thing about this, is that the Ravens aren't going to hold someone that doesn't want to be there. The Ravens aren't going to sign someone that doesn't want to be there. They're a better, more respectable franchise than that, in my opinion. I think that they're smarter than that, because if they get into this contract situation for another year, it's not going to be pretty. I mean, they're going to have a bad season. I mean, yeah, they had an all-pro quarterback, which just,
Well, that's a waste of breath.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
But it's just it's a weird situation. I just don't know if it gets done.
Here's the one other thing they can do, and I heard Mike Florio talking about this. This is the one other thing they can do, which is a really interesting situation, and that is you sign him to a non-exclusive franchise tag. There is such a thing, where the Ravens say, okay, we're going to franchise tag you for 35, 40, 45, whatever it is. But another team out there could then match that offer sheet on a franchise tag deal. So you know what would happen then? Let's just pick a team. Say the Jets, right? Say they're like, okay, we're in. We'll take him, franchise thing. But they're going to say, or are they allowed to say, or would it be a backroom deal where Lamar says, okay, but before I think about leaving Baltimore and coming to your place, what are my chances of getting, after this year, a 4 or 5 year deal that we agree soon as I get there? Right?
Right.
Okay. So that's always a possibility, and there are rules and stipulations and, probably exclusivity as far as who you can talk to, not talk to, all that kind of thing. Back to what you said about he wants the money guaranteed over the long haul. My argument is everybody and his brother wants the money guaranteed over the long haul. But I'm getting 40-something million today. That's better than zero.
Yeah,
I'm taking the 40 million. Paul, you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When you're giving me money? Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
because if he goes out and doesn't play on a tag, if he doesn't, the one thing you could do is you get your 40, 45, 50 million, whatever that number is, of the top 5 quarterbacks at your position, okay? Say it's 45 million. You get your 45 million, and you get to go prove to the Ravens, still on a 1-year deal, or any other team in the NFL, that you are capable of being this MVP player again, right? Or if you got hurt, you still collected the 45 million. If you sit out, you don't get the 45 million. Okay, if I'm his agent, this is exactly what I'm saying to him. And I guess his agent's his mom. I would say, honey, if you don't play, you lose the 45 million, and no team out there alive 1 year after sitting out is going to give you a long-term contract. No chance on God's earth.
The Browns did.
What's that?
The Browns did.
That's the Browns.
I mean,
that's the Browns, and it's a different deal. Different deal.
Is it?
It is.
I don't know if it's much different. I mean, if he sits out a year, I mean.
But that's the Browns. That's why they're the Browns.
Yeah, that's why they stink.
That's why they're there. You go. All right. Do we have a Cherry on top today or no?
That's what I have been furiously searching for the last 5 minutes.
I thought there was something I saw yesterday, and I'm not going to remember what it was. Gosh, I wish I could remember. And I would have bet the ranch that you had found this. And now that I'm trying to think about it,
I'm usually pretty good about bookmarking stuff the night before when I see things, and now
I wish I can remember because I was looking at something.
Well, let me just say this. I'm pretty sure that's $1 in the jar. We're going to be talking more about the NFL offseason. This was just 2 quarterback situations and a little bit of Derek Carr's situation too, but there's just a ton of storylines. Teams that need to get better in free agency, have a lot of cap space, like the Bears, draft capital. I mean, we didn't even really talk about the draft. We're going to have Vach on for draft talks. I'll even add in some of my analysis and what I can pull up for the Bengals, what I think they should do. And we'll probably when it gets closer to the football season, we'll probably do something like we're doing now with basketball, where we go through the divisions and we just say, all right, how are these teams looking after the offseason, stuff like that. So we aren't going to be completely devoid of football through the offseason. We will talk about it. So stay tuned with us. We'll keep the football talk. We'll cover it when it comes out and talk about it when we need to. And right now we're going to try to focus heavy on basketball.
I'm trying to find – I had something last night, and I can't find it.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. We're out of time. I'm waiting on a couple of – and I was just checking my phone right now to see if I had heard back from a couple of people that we've extended invitations out to about joining us tomorrow, waiting on that.
Big interview.
Marty Brennaman will be here tomorrow. We know that. We'll talk with him. Reds, a week away.
A week?
1 week away from pitchers and catchers reporting.
You taking over the 66.5 wins for the Reds this year? Something to think about. Come back to that. I would.
You would take the over on that deal?
I think they win the mid-70s this year.
Yeah, I do too.
So that means they lose the mid-90s this year, right?
But they'll get over 66.5.
Okay. I don't know how they're going to score. I mean, ESPN went through that whole mock lineup of every team. The only team rated lower than the Reds' everyday lineup, the Oakland A's.
Tom, what do we always say?
And that was counting on a big bounce back season from Votto.
Oh, come on, baby.
What do we always say on this show, Tom?
What is it?
Don't let facts get in the way of a good narrative.
Amen. Amen. Division champs, NL Central.
There we go.
Champions.
All right, boys. Thanks, Case. Paul, great job. Enjoy the warm weather. I mean, it's nice out today. It's cloudy, but it's 50 to 50-something degrees here in the Natty.
Yeah.
Ready to roll.
Not too picky right now.
Not too picky's coming up right now. Have a great day.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time. And if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
Welcome into Not Too Picky. Today is Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. Paul Fritchner, Reed Mouse, Casey McAllister, and Tuesday shows are a little briefer usually because we go through the college basketball, and that's what we're going to focus on today. There's a ton of college basketball tonight, so we're going to go through probably the 6 or 7, the biggest lines. I have a lot of things I can talk about with college basketball tonight. Reed, we owe the people – I don't know if we owe the people an apology.
We don't owe the people
I don't think we
shit.
do owe the people an apology because you did say –
I prefaced it.
You did – yeah. So you know what?
If anything, I gave you winners. I told you yesterday on the show twice. 2 different times on the box lunch, I said, guys, I went 10-0 or whatever I went, 10 out of my last 12. Start fading my picks. And both my picks lost. So that's on you for not heeding my advice.
It's true. Waste Management Open, I would say so I had planned to do the Waste Management Open picks on Thursday. Problem is, by the time we get to this show at noon, it'll already be started. So maybe what we can do is just look at the live, because by that time, I mean, there will be a few guys that have gone off, but it's 3 hours behind there in out there in Phoenix, so we can look at the live stuff, and it really won't be that much different by the time we do the show on Thursday. Mike will be on the show on Thursday. I'm thinking Tom's not listening to this. What do we think Tom's openness is to having Mike Schmaltz on the show to do a NASCAR segment on Off the Bench? On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is that to happen?
1.
I was going to say a 2 because somebody requested it in the chat.
Yeah. If you guys want to see, I'll tell the viewers this. If you guys want to see a NASCAR segment on Off the Bench, suggest it in the chat. Just keep peppering it. Be like, can we talk NASCAR? Can we talk NASCAR? Because
oh my God, look at this.
Then it would heed.
Please, no. What do I need to do, NASCAR?
The player formerly known as Mouse Cop is trying to cancel this show, and here he is watching it.
Yeah. Well, we love you, Mouse Cop.
We do love you,
as always.
We do love you, Mouse Cop.
Okay, so we have college basketball tonight, and that's what we're going to go through. But there's also NBA, and Casey keeps winning on the NBA.
He does keep winning on the. I do love Casey's picket. You've mentioned it before. Is hilarious. I mean, he goes up 8 units. You check his. It's
unbelievable.
Picket. It's like 12 bets to win 336 units, and my boy's just peppering them. So good for Casey to keep winning. But are you going to start giving us some winners?
Are you going to actually start giving us some of these picks?
I can't believe Marcus Brogdon didn't get 25.
Oh, my God.
I can't
Marcus, what are you doing? Yeah, I know. I mean, well, that's the tough part is my research is best done when it's closer to the game. When it's closer to the game, I can make a better decision. But
you could text us.
I know. I need to do a better job at posting into the Discord. I don't post a whole lot, if at all, in the Discord.
Casey leaves the office, and he's locked in on fiance mode, family man. He leaves this office. He goes phone off, fiance on. Yeah, and that's how he is. So we don't even get his picks. He just peppers the picks before he even gets home, and then he just wakes up to a buttload of cash every morning.
He gets over here, he finishes editing the videos and stuff, 3 o'clock, and then he hops in the lab, right? He starts cooking. A little some of this, a little sprinkle of that. You start making all these concoctions. A little Marcus Brogdon.
You know what's funny about the Marcus Brogdon thing? So I was making the graphic yesterday and had my headphones on, and I said, all right, Casey's taking Marcus Brogdon. And apparently, I didn't hear this, obviously, because I made the graphic anyways with Marcus Brogdon in there. Don't know anything about NBA players. Sean Spurlock looks at me and goes, it's Malcolm. And that's all he said. He told me this today. He's like, I told you it was Malcolm Brogdon while you were making the graphic yesterday. And I just didn't listen. I was literally just like typing. I didn't hear him say that. He told me that he said that yesterday. I don't remember it at all.
Well, what was funny was when you sent me the graphic,
I do it to say is this good to go? Or else I would just tweet it out. When I send you the graphic, I'm doing it so you could look it over one time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because when you sent it to me, well, I didn't know what the logins were that you had or whatever. So when you sent
Okay,
when you sent it to me, I looked at it And I didn't look at it that closely. Yep. And boom, went out Marcus, but it didn't hit anyway.
No, it was a bad omen right from the start. It's my fault. I sent Marcus through text. I don't know where I got Marcus from because apparently I said Malcolm on air.
You did say the right thing on air, which is why I was surprised. I thought maybe one of you guys was testing me or something. I don't know. All right, tonight, huge night in college basketball. Marquette and UConn.
Yeah, there's 8 ranked teams.
Yes.
And they're all playing each other in 4 different leagues.
Yeah, Marquette and UConn, which here's what I'll say about the Marquette-UConn game. Right now, Xavier is plus 200 to win the Big East on Betfred Sportsbook. This Marquette and UConn game is probably one of the 3 most important Big East regular season games left. If UConn wins this game tonight and you just project out the favorites the rest of the way, Xavier will end up as the number 1 seed in the Big East tournament. Now, there would also be a tie at the top if you project the favorites out, and I don't know how Betfred would pay out a shared regular season title. I don't know how that would work. Is it just a push? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But this Marquette and UConn game tonight is one of the 3 most important games, in my opinion, of the Big East regular season remaining. Marquette, last I checked, was a 4-point favorite. They're at 4.5 right now. Or sorry, UConn's a 4.5-point favorite. Marquette's 4.5-point dog. Total is 147.5. These teams blew past that total the last time they played. I would lean over in this game. I think it's at home. Marquette scores a ton. This is a great matchup, though, for UConn. It's a really, really good matchup for UConn. If you're a Xavier fan listening, you desperately want UConn to win this game, which is wild to say. I'm not picking a side here. I'll take the over.
Yeah, we don't bet UConn as Sir Boy brings it in. I don't know if that's actually a rule in the Discord or not. I think they are. I think that's a rule.
I don't know. We'd have to go back.
We'd have to go in the pin messages. But it seems like a trap game, right? I mean, Marquette's clearly the better team. Not only are they the better team, that they're playing better right now.
Yeah.
And they're 4.5-point favorite or underdogs, but it is on the road. I don't like either way. I do like how this game's the opener, so you can maybe get a little appetizer in that first half. You're looking at the first half lines, and you're getting 69.5, so they have to get 70. I really don't like that either way. Maybe you take UConn minus 2.5 at home, starting out, jumping out hot. There's just some weird things going on over in UConn.
I would take the over at 147.5, root for points. Your Indiana Hoosiers playing Rutgers tonight. You seem to have zero faith in Indiana. I think you should have some faith in Indiana, but I can see where you would say that this is a letdown spot. Rutgers is a horrific offensive team. 4.5-point underdogs at Assembly Hall. Indiana favored in this one. Total 135.5. I'd smash the Hoosiers here.
So, yeah, they're 4.5-point favorites. It's coming right after the biggest win in Indiana in close to a decade. I mean, they've had similar wins, especially against a rival, against the number 1 team. They're at home again. Knowing what, if you watch Indiana enough, this is where they let down. I text my very close friend that's a Indiana fan, and he said that they're going to kill them. They're going to cover. He always bets against Indiana, so that it makes me a little more scared that he has a lot of confidence in them covering. You know what I do like in this game?
What do you like?
I like the over. It's very low. Rutgers doesn't score a whole lot, but it's 135.5. They're sitting at home. I like Indiana. They're good in transition. That's when they score their most points. Giving it to Trace Jackson Davis. I think I like 130-36 getting to that number on Betfred right now. It is currently at pulling it up. Sorry.
You're good.
It is currently at 135.5. So I think if I'm going to take anything, I'm going to take the over. I think I'm going to lay off this because it seems like a letdown for Indiana.
You've convinced me. All right, I'm not smashing Indiana anymore. We're laying off. I guess that's 2 totals now, 2 overs. Auburn and Texas A&M. Auburn got screwed over the weekend. They should have been at the line for 3 free throws at the end of that game. Absolutely got fouled, but that was an ugly game anyway. 46-43 in the final of a college basketball game is a disgusting score. Texas A&M's headed in the wrong direction. I haven't watched a ton of Texas A&M this year, if I'm being completely honest with you. Texas A&M, headed in the wrong direction is maybe a little strong given the fact that they're like 8-2 or 9-2 in the SEC. 8-2 is what I'm seeing here. Mm-hmm. But they lost to Arkansas by 11. Arkansas, to their credit, has done wonders to turn their season around after.
Yeah, you thought they were falling off a cliff for a while there.
They had lost 4 in a row, including a loss to Vanderbilt. They look like they were just they look like they were just hitting the iceberg, and now they've won 4 of 5, but 4 of those 5 wins are against 107th or worse. So how much can you read into that? The one win in there over Texas A&M, over a better team. I am not going to take this game. The one game I am looking at tonight.
Yeah.
Cincinnati money line.
You like Cincinnati?
I like Cincinnati in that game.
So this is another game where I know we're talking totals a lot here. I like the over in this game. Tulane runs up and down the floor. UC scores a lot. The total is very high. It's in the 150s for these two teams. But the last time that they played, I think they scored, it was like a 90-87 game. So it was they smashed the over. And I like something similar to happen tonight.
Yeah, Tulane's 15-7 on the year, 8-3. They are coming off a win against Memphis in overtime over the weekend. 3 overtime games in their last 4 games overall. Give me Cincinnati on the road. I really like how Cincinnati's playing right now.
So you know what this show is?
What is this show?
It's not too picky, but it is Cincinnati's premier.
It also is that, yes.
Local sports betting advice. So I think we've got graphics for all the local games here. Let me pull them up.
Okay.
I can activate it from my laptop, right, Casey?
Yep.
Yeah, you can.
Nope.
Fire them up here.
Yep. Getting not too picky pulled up.
There we go.
So yeah, the total is the spread is 1.5, and the total is 152. You like UC? UC's money line.
If you're gonna take this, take UC money line. I really like the way Cincinnati's playing right now. I really do.
I'm taking the over, and I know I've given nothing but totals so far, but I'm taking the over. I like the way they run up and down the floor. I like a big scoring. UC's playing really well right now. I just like a lot of points.
So the first time they played, to your point about this, and this goes back to what I was saying about UConn and Marquette. First time these teams played, you see 152.5 on the screen right now for the total in this game. First time they played, 165 points.
Yeah, so way past
over.
it. Blew way past it.
Way over.
And I like just the way the two teams are playing right now. So if you also want to get some other lines there, there's the total teams over. Tulane's 77, UC 75.5. Don't like an edge there, just showing you guys so you know. The first half over under 72, and the first half is also a pick 'em. First half lines are typically just whatever the game spread is, cut it in half. There's nothing special to that. Now, The over-unders, they differ by about 10 points just because you inherently think that there's going to be more points scored in the second half due to fouling if it is a close game. I don't like any of those bets, just showing you so you guys know what's on Betfred Sportsbook.
All right, next one.
Yeah, we've got a VCU and Dayton. So
God, Dayton's bad right now. So bad. VCU -4. I'm all over it.
They're home. VCU's home against Dayton. VCU, are they looking to win the A-10? I think they are.
So Dayton should have won the first matchup against VCU at UD Arena. Dayton choked that game away. They were up, I think, 6 with less than a minute to go and lost that game. They lost by 1. Dayton lost at St. Bonaventure over the weekend by 9, and even the 9 wasn't really all that close. Give me VCU at home in this game. Ken Palm has it by 3. If you want to get it down to 2, okay, but I think you're still safe at 4. VCU's playing the right way. Dayton's playing the wrong way. VCU only has 1 loss since January 4th. Give me the Rams. And actually, that 1 loss, St. Bonaventure, same team. Dayton
the Bonnies.
Lost too.
Yeah. 130, man, that's so low. Is this going to be a rock fight? I mean, what's going on here?
First time they played 125. 63-62.
I was on that game.
I was also on that game.
That was
pick a side. Do you think I was on?
I was on VCU that side because that's what paid for my Ravens tickets.
Oh, that's
Bengals
right.
That
was
Raven tickets.
Dayton was 7-point favorites, and I was like, I wouldn't take them on the spread, but I feel pretty good about them.
That was when they blew like a 9-point lead in the final couple minutes, right? I'm sorry, Paul. And now he has a vendetta. He's going out and he's taking the Rams against the Flyers.
Dayton's just shown me nothing the last 2 weeks. Give me the Rams. Dayton stinks.
Yeah, these are the props that you got. The team total 63-67 first half. You can take Dayton's money line at plus 155 if you think the Flyers are going to win outright. So those are just all the props you see on Betfred. Betfred does do some player props in college sports, but typically only for the bigger games.
Yep.
These games don't have a whole lot.
All right. Next up.
This one is the barn burner. They're in the Mid-American Conference. Miami, 3-point favorites at home against Western Michigan.
They got to win this game. So only the top 8 MAC teams make the MAC tournament. Miami's not going to make it, but if they want to have any shot of making it, Miami has to go 2-0 this week. They're playing the directional schools in Michigan, Western Michigan, and Central Michigan this week. They're going to be favored in both games. Probably the 2 worst teams left on their schedule, especially back-to-back. They're both at Millett Hall. Miami has to go 2-0 this week to keep any semblance of hope for their postseason dreams alive to just even play in the MAC tournament. Miami is very bad.
I think I'm going to sprinkle the Red Hawks, though. I think I am.
I agree.
They're
I agree.
3-point favorites at home.
Go ahead.
You know how I've told you this before. You know how I know when Miami's at home, living here in Hamilton?
Oh, yeah.
So you drive across the high main bridge from the west side to the east side. We're here in downtown. And you pass the Marriott Hotel. If there's a charter bus at the Marriott Hotel, that's how you know Miami's at home, because there's not a whole lot of hotels in Oxford, which is 20 minutes up the road. So when teams come to play Miami, they actually stay here in Hamilton. They go out to eat at the Texas Roadhouse. I've seen them in Gina's before. And then they go play up at Miami, drive 20 minutes, and then they leave. So I knew that Miami was at home because there was a charter bus at the Marriott Hotel, which is 2 blocks away from our studio here.
Yep, Western Michigan in town. Give me the Red Hawks, though. They got to win. They got to win, and they got to win by more than 3 here.
Yeah,
tonight.
I like the Red Hawks too. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit.
Yeah.
Not even a full unit, just a little bit. A little bit. We don't have any props for that one because, sorry, Miami, but who cares?
Yep.
The final local team, and we're kind of taking liberties with local, but they're within 2 hours.
Oh, I mean, hey, if you live on,
there's a big fan base here.
If you there's a reason I have Kentucky in the rebound rundown every day, and it's because if you live in northern Kentucky, you're just about as far from Lexington as you are to Dayton. I mean, it's a little closer to Dayton, but it's not that much farther. If you're going 70 miles an hour down towards Lexington, it's really not that much farther to go down to Lexington than it is to go to Dayton.
My favorite part about Lexington is all the major roads are named after horses.
Oh, yeah.
Man o' War.
Big horse guy. Love the horses.
Seabiscuit.
We do need to start getting FanDuel up here for a race of the day at the end of the show.
We need to get what?
Thursday. We can't do that.
What are you doing?
We can't do that. Yeah, we can't do that.
Kentucky 5.5 point favorites.
We talked about that for so long. I forgot about that.
Damn it, Ball.
My bad.
The over-under is what, 130? Or is that 138? I hate the graphic here.
138, maybe? 138. To be clear, I was only talking about their horse racing.
138 is the line on Betfred Sportsbook. Man, $5 in the jar, boom shot. They're drilling you. Cut the clip.
True.
We'll cut it out.
It's the only place to watch horse racing. I'm not betting through them. It's the only place to watch horse racing because they cut out TVG. All right. Arkansas and Kentucky. Kentucky's got to win here.
5.5 point. You thought Arkansas was going to fall off the cliff. Kentucky's playing better. Kentucky's fighting to stay alive. They still have a – let me put it this way. Kentucky's a team that is trending towards being a lower seed in the tournament right now, a double-digit seed, right? Like they're going to be in the tournament.
Yes.
And they're going to be like a double-digit seed. And how terrible would you feel being a 5 seed playing a 12-seeded Kentucky team? Wouldn't like that. I like Kentucky to win at Rupp Arena, 5.5. I like them to cover.
This is a situation – I saw somebody write an article about it the other day. This is a situation where you could very easily have like an 8 or 9 seed here, and you're going to be sitting there in the Final Four and go, 9-seeded Kentucky.
Right.
I'm not saying Kentucky necessarily is that like pick to go to the Final Four, but think back to 2017 when Xavier made the Elite 8 as an 11 seed. Xavier was not an 11 seed that year. They played to their record of an 11 seed because Trayvon Blewett got hurt, and they took on a lot of losses, 6 losses in a row that year, and they played their way to an 11 seed down the stretch.
Right.
But that Xavier team was way better than an 11 seed all season long. It just, guys got hurt, and that's where they ended up. This Kentucky team if they start playing to the way that people thought they were going to play before the season, which is kind of a classic Calipari, it took them a while to get going. Antonio Reeves shooting the ball better. C.J. Frederick, if he can even be serviceable shooting the ball, which he has been lately, had a really tough stretch to start the year. Of course, he was hurt too. He's coming off that injury from last year. I think Kentucky can really get this rolling. They have shown sparks of life, but they got to do it in the SEC against a good team. Arkansas, I was afraid they were going to fall off a cliff. They haven't yet. This is a big statement game for both teams because for Arkansas, obviously, it's on the road. You're 5.5-point underdogs. Give me Kentucky here.
Yeah.
Give me Kentucky here in this spot.
I'm not gonna throw a unit on this straight, but I will add Kentucky as a money line in a parlay if I throw it together, a little college parlay, just to sprinkle up some odds. I think Kentucky wins at home here. I don't know if they can cover 5.5, but to your point, I'm already reading the tea leaves on where teams are going to face in the tournament. Kentucky's one team that might be a double-digit team or like an 8-9, like you said, that is going to win some tournament games. Creighton's another team that is trending in that direction. Can you imagine being a 5 seed and facing Creighton in the first round of the tournament? Who wants to do that?
Agreed. All right.
Let's get those props up real quick.
Fire it up here.
Fire those bad boys. The UK's team total is 71.5. Arkansas 66.5. The first half over under 65.5. Guys, I really like that first half over. I really do.
Arkansas, it's 66. I mean, look back. They scored 81 against Texas A&M. They've been right around that 60 number, that 66 number for the last month or so. I like the points there too. Yeah.
I like that first half total a lot. I've said this to Paul privately. I've said this over the air a few times. If gambling is what it should be, just an entertainment factor, and you like making bets that might not be, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of edge on these two bets, but they are just fun to consume your life for 20 minutes or so. That is in baseball, the Nerfy, no runs first inning bet. You'll see that. We'll throw those a lot out in April throughout the summer. But also here in college basketball season, first half totals are just so much fun. You sit there, you lock in for 20 minutes, you root for points or for some defense, and you leave it at that. Especially in March Madness when you're just trying to sprinkle some cash along the sprinkle some scratch along the board. You just take a game that you don't know either team about and just take a total either way. A lot of fun. It's a lot of fun if you do it responsibly.
I agree.
But those are all you see. UK's money line minus 235. Sprinkle that in your parlay tonight.
All right.
I like that a lot.
Before we get off the air here, Casey, you got to give us something. Something.
Yeah, I've got a couple things for you guys.
Oh boy.
And I would not parlay these. Please don't parlay these because I don't think this is one of these may or may not hit. So here's what I got. I am going Pelicans minus 1.5, Knicks -1, Russell Westbrook 20+ points and assists.
Points PRAs or just points and assists? Points, rebounds, assists? Or?
No, points and assists. Just points and assists. That one, that prop specifically is minus 120 right now on Betfred.
All on the Betfred Sportsbook.
Yeah, all on the Betfred. I think that's kind of low, especially because LeBron is day-to-day. I don't think he's actually going to play today, and AD is also hurt as well. And I was just looking into maybe doing a prop for the Knicks, but maybe I'll just save that one for later. Those are the three I got right now. Pelicans, minus 1.5. Knicks, -1. And Westbrook, points and assists, +20.
All right.
Love it.
Cool.
My biggest play of the night?
Yes.
Take Virginia to cover. 6.5 against NC State. They're at home.
Whoa, 6.5. I didn't even look at that game.
Yep, 6.5.
Okay. I like
nice and tight.
Good Lord, Casey.
Love it. Nice and tight,
Good God,
baby.
Casey.
Love it. Look at this complexion, guys. I'm moisturized.
Wow. I don't. I need to.
Look at that forehead just shining in those lights.
Yikes. I can't even. That TV makes it. Yeah. All right. Anything else?
We'll put out our parlay. We're going to start throwing some more content out on our Twitter, just different graphics than our picks. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back. Mike Schmaltz will be here with us on Thursday, too. So we'll have all of that, and we'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for listening.
Box lunch tomorrow. Tune in.
Yep.